Chapter 43. Ever since he started cultivating the sword heart, Ji Tianqing had been looking forward to this day when he could condense a sword embryo. With his current strength at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, when he attacked with all his might, his combat power was comparable to a martial artist at the 1st or 2nd level of the true element realm. If he used his trump card and manipulated 12 streaks of sword qi to attack, he could even defeat a martial artist at the 3rd or 4th level of the true element realm. A normal martial artist at the 9th level of the body refinement realm would never be able to do that. This was the extraordinary part of the sword heart Tao. Ji Tianqing had yet to condense a sword embryo, but he already had such a powerful combat power. If he could successfully condense a sword embryo, how powerful would his combat power be? According to the description on the tombstone, only by condensing a sword embryo can one be considered to have stepped into the sword heart Tao and truly enter the world of sword Tao. After I condense a sword embryo, I will be able to embark on a unique sword Tao. Ji Tianqing murmured in a low voice. His expression and eyes were incomparably firm. Success or failure depends on this. He took out 6 red star petals from the box and held them in his palm. He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. The 6 petals immediately turned into streaks of silver light and entered his mouth. Suddenly, a surge of majestic energy exploded in his stomach and rushed to his limbs and bones. Ji Tianqing's face instantly turned red. He felt as if a volcano had erupted in his body. His body immediately became boiling hot and he was drenched in sweat. White steam even rose from his body. *T. I was too impatient. I took 6 petals at once. I'm afraid my body can't withstand such a terrifying medicinal power. Ji Tianqing cursed in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. Now that things had come to this, he could only grit his teeth and endure it. He hurriedly guided the scorching energy in his body to the meridians in his body. The red star flower grew in the mountains for 60 years and absorbed the essence of the sun, moon, and stars for 60 years. Of course, its energy was majestic and violent. The power of the stars was unfathomable and powerful. Human martial artists did not dare to absorb it. With the weak body of a human, they could only absorb the milder qi of heaven and earth to cultivate. But now, the energy that the red star flower had accumulated for 60 years exploded in Ji Tianqing's body. How could he withstand it? Qi. After a short while, Ji Tianqing's sweat was pouring down like rain, but it was evaporated into steam by the scorching high temperature, giving rise to puffs of white mist. The extreme pain caused all the muscles in his body to twitch and his bones to emit cracking sound. His entire body seemed to be distorted and deformed. He could even clearly sense the vast medicinal strength of the scarlet meteorite flower raging within his body and madly destroying his meridians. This caused him both extreme pain and extreme anxiety. Initially, he wanted to consume the red star flower to strengthen his meridians, but he didn't expect that his weak meridians would be completely destroyed, broken and twisted into a mess. What should he do? How was he going to cultivate in the future? Could it be that his martial arts foundation was completely destroyed and he could only be a cripple for the rest of his life? Ji Tianqing's heart was filled with a strong sense of unwillingness and anger. He tried his best to circulate his energy to disperse and guide the vast medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower. However, when he managed to disperse the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower, guiding it into dozens of scorching torrents and spreading it to every part of his body, the situation became even worse. Earlier on, the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower had only destroyed his meridians. Now that it had spread to his limbs and bones, it had destroyed all the meridians in his body. Ji Tianqing was filled with despair. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he was already powerless to stop the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower. He could only allow the meridians in his body to be destroyed. Pfft! He felt a warm sensation in his throat. He couldn't help but open his mouth and spit out a mouthful of hot blood. Following that, the skin all over his body started to crack. Numerous cracks and wounds appeared and countless drops of blood seeped out from them. It's over. My physical body can't withstand the medicinal efficacy. Am I going to explode and die? Ji Tianxing screamed in his heart. His consciousness started to become hazy and blurry. In just a short few minutes, his mental and physical strength were completely exhausted. Intense fatigue surged from the depths of his soul, and he was about to fall asleep. Am I going to die? But I can't accept this. I have yet to avenge the Ling family. I have yet to clear my name as a useless person. I have yet to eliminate the Ji family's internal problems. I have yet to heal my father's injuries. The intense unwillingness in his heart made Ji Tianxing's willpower stubbornly hold on. Although he wasn't unconscious, his consciousness was muddled, and he was on the verge of being half asleep. He couldn't even control his own body. He could only sit stiffly in the array and allow the medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower to wreak havoc in his body. He didn't know how much time had passed. It could have been a day or a month. His consciousness started to wake up slowly. He realized that the burning pain in his body had disappeared. The violent and scorching medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower seemed to have calmed down. He slowly lowered his head and looked at his body. I am not dead yet? I am still alive. Not only was he not dead, but his physical body was also in perfect condition. Ji Tianxing was instantly energized. His eyes lit up with the flames of hope. As long as he was alive, there was still hope. Although his entire body was sore and numb, he could still feel the tearing pain left behind after his meridians were destroyed. However, he endured the pain and lowered his head to size up his body. The black robe he was wearing was covered in a layer of blood and dirt. It had actually become stiff like a piece of mud. He saw that the bloodstains on his arms and legs were actually black. His entire body was also covered in a thick layer of dirt. How could this be? Why was the blood I vomited and the blood that flowed out from my wounds black? Ji Tianxing was filled with doubts and couldn't figure it out for now. At this moment, he suddenly felt a numbing sensation all over his body. It was unbearably itchy. However, his entire body was sore and numb. He couldn't move at all. It was wishful thinking to reach out and scratch the itch. Ji Tianxing could only endure the numbness and itchiness and calmly sense the situation in his body. Soon, he realized that the damaged and twisted meridians in his body were actually healing rapidly. The majestic medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower was still dormant in his body. It actually turned into countless icy cold streams and wrapped around his meridians. The messy meridians were actually recovering rapidly under the nourishment of the cool medicinal efficacy. Ji Tianxing was stunned. After a while, he recovered and immediately guessed the reason. I understand now. I see. The scarlet meteorite flower is indeed a spirit herb. It actually has such miraculous effects. Haha, is this one of the legendary Martial Dao's strange realms, destruction before establishment? In this world, legends said that there were many kinds of Martial Dao's strange realms that could rapidly increase a martial artist's strength or change a martial artist's talent. For example, bone marrow cleansing, rebirth, destruction before establishment, yin and yang fusion, unity of heaven and man, and so on. They were all Martial Dao's strange realms. However, although the effects of Martial Dao's strange realms were miraculous, they would only appear on top geniuses or martial artists who had obtained great opportunities. Ji Tianxing's current situation was precisely the destruction before establishment in Martial Dao's strange realms. Originally, his meridians were the same as ordinary martial artists. This limited his future achievements in Martial Dao. Even if he was extraordinarily talented and had extremely high comprehension, a genius who far surpassed ordinary martial artists. However, he could at most reach the origin core realm in this lifetime before his potential was exhausted. But it was different now. The medicinal efficacy of the scarlet meteorite flower destroyed his meridians and helped him rebuild them. That's right. It was rebuilding his meridians and not strengthening them. After rebuilding his meridians, he had even more powerful potential and talent. His future achievements in martial Tao would definitely be extraordinary. I'll continue to update today. There are a total of 4 chapters. Brothers and sisters, please support me by bookmarking and recommending me. Everyone can also leave a comment. Remember to leave a 5-star review. Please, brothers. Chapter 44. Ji Tianqing had read many martial arts manuals and understood the wonders of martial art. It was a pity that martial arts was like a legend to him, unreachable. He never dared to imagine that one day he would encounter a martial arts wondrous realm, destruction followed by re-establishment. He knew the extraordinary effects of destruction followed by re-establishment. Of course, he was excited and his eyes shone brightly. Destruction followed by re-establishment. Previously, my energy center was destroyed and I couldn't return to the true energy realm. I was the biggest laughingstock in Qingyun country. But from today onwards, I have potential that ordinary people can't reach. I will definitely have greater martial arts achievements and become an even more dazzling genius than before. Breaking out of the cocoon and becoming a butterfly, soaring to the sky. After a long time, Ji Tianqing finally calmed down. He calmed his heart and felt the changes in his meridians. He watched as the red meteorite flower reconstructed his meridians. No wonder so many forces and experts want to get their hands on the red meteorite flower. Such a spiritual herb that seizes the fortune of heaven and earth and gathers the essence of the sun and moon is really rare. The sun represents the yang while the moon represents the yin. The combination of the sun and the moon is the combination of yin and yang. That's why it has such a miraculous effect. When I first consumed the red meteorite flower, the yang potency destroyed my meridians. Now the yin potency is reconstructing my meridians. In that case, the martial arts wondrous realm I have today is not only destruction followed by re-establishment but also the combination of yin and yang. At the thought of this, Ji Tianqing's eyes flashed with astonishment. He was even more surprised. Just the destruction before establishment realm of the martial way alone was enough to make him a martial way genius. If he had the combination of yin and yang, which was even rarer, wouldn't he become a top genius? Ji Tianqing was excited and full of anticipation for the future. He believed that the day of revenge and cleansing his humiliation was not far away. However, all of this was based on the fact that he could condense the sword embryo. Once the sword embryo was formed, he could look forward to the unparalleled sword Tao and his future would be bright. If he couldn't condense the sword embryo, all of his fantasies and expectations would just be an illusion. Time flew by and 12 hours passed quickly. Ji Tianqing's numbness disappeared and his meridians were completely reconstructed. The majestic medicinal power of the red star flower also lay dormant in his body, filling his limbs and bones, slowly strengthening his physical body. He tried to cultivate and absorb the qi of heaven and earth in the array formation. As expected, the boundless qi of heaven and earth entered his body like small streams flowing into a great river. After the reconstruction, his meridians had become wider and more resilient, allowing him to circulate his qi without any hindrance. If his meridians were like small streams in the past, then his current meridians were like rivers. Great! With the current strength of my meridians, there is at least an 80% chance that I will succeed if I channel the sword qi and condense the sword embryo. After Ji Tianqing was done with his preparations, he could not wait to circulate his energy to control the sword qi and try to condense the sword embryo. Earlier in the Taiyi mountain range, He'd forced the sword chi out of his body many times to fight, so he was already very familiar with controlling the 12 strands of sword chi. Now, he was controlling the sword chi to enter his meridians and swim towards his dantian. Not only were the reconstructed meridians wider, they were also tougher, enough to withstand the sharp and fierce sword chi. However, when the sword chi swam in his meridians, he still felt a piercing pain. But this level of pain was not a problem for him. After 15 minutes, Ji Tianxing successfully moved the sword chi from his huizong acupoint to his dantian. The toothpick-like faint golden sword chi floated in the black hole in his dantian, calm and steady. He had finally taken the first step to success. Ji Tianxing was in high spirit. He circulated the sword chi from his yanqi acupoint to enter his meridians and flow towards his dantian. After 15 minutes, the second sword chi reached his dantian and floated in the black hole. Subsequently, Ji Tianxing activated the third, fourth, and fifth strands of sword chi. 6 hours had passed. The sword chi from his 12 acupoints had all gathered in the black hole in his dantian. He was only one step away from success. The last step was to fuse the 12 strands of sword chi and condense the sword embryo. Ji Tianxing was neither arrogant nor rash. He carefully and steadily circulated the way of the heart of the sword and started to fuse the sword chi. This process was very difficult and did not allow for the slightest mistake. He had enough patience and perseverance to fuse the sword chi one after another and condense the embryonic form of the sword embryo. The secret chamber was silent and time passed quietly. After 16 hours, he finally fused the 12 strands of sword chi and condensed them into a small golden sword the size of a little finger. The sword embryo was finally condensed successfully. From now on, this small golden sword would be the source of his power, his dantian. He had finally laid the foundation of the way of the heart of the sword and successfully stepped into the door of the supreme sword principle. He was not far from the way of the heart of the sword. At this moment, Ji Tianxing's emotions were surging and his blood was boiling. He revealed a gratified smile. He had endured so much humiliation and experienced so many life and death situations, but it was all worth it. Ji Tianxing stopped and ended his closed-door cultivation. He forced himself to endure the weakness in his body and the hunger in his stomach as he walked out of the secret chamber. After returning to his room, he hurriedly called for his maid, Huan-er. Huan-er opened the door and entered. When she saw Ji Tianxing's appearance, she was shocked. "Eldest young master, you've only been in closed-door cultivation for 2 days. How did you become like this?" She saw that Ji Tianxing's hair was messy like a chicken's nest. The black robe on his body was covered with blood and stains. His face and arms were also full of black mud. His miserable appearance was similar to that of a beggar who had not bathed for many years. Ji Tianxing was in a good mood. He smiled and waved his hand. "Huan-er, don't ask. Quickly prepare hot water. I want to bathe and change my clothes. Also, go to the kitchen and prepare a table of food. Young master is starving." Huan-er suppressed the doubts in her heart and did not ask any more questions. She hurriedly prepared hot water and food. After 2 hours, Ji Tianxing washed off the dirt on his body and changed into a clean set of clothes. He returned to his handsome and elegant appearance. Moreover, his physical body had been cleansed by the red star flower's medicinal power. His body had become more well-proportioned and perfect. His skin was also sparkling like jade. When Huan-er served him the meal, her eyes always secretly glanced at him. Her face was slightly red and she secretly thought, "Why is it that after 2 days of closed-door cultivation, young master is not only refreshed and in a good mood, but even his skin has become so beautiful?" She could also feel that the confident temperament of the young master had returned. In fact, he was even more glowing than when he was the #1 genius in the imperial city. Although the large table of food was quickly disappearing, She felt that the young master's eating movements were more elegant and imposing than before. After a while, Ji Tianqing finished the entire table of food. Only then did he leave with satisfaction. After leaving Cool Breeze Courtyard, he rushed to Second Courtyard's martial arts hall to test his current strength. Chapter 45. It was noon. The scorching sun hung high in the sky and the air was hot and dry. The square outside the martial arts hall was empty. The Ji family disciples would not practice martial arts under the scorching sun. Ji Tianqing stepped into the martial arts hall. Seeing that there was no one in the hall, he walked to the high platform in the corner. Looking at the engraved stone pillar in front of him, he felt a little uneasy. Although he had condensed the sword embryo, the path of the sword heart was different from that of ordinary people. It was unheard of. He wasn't sure if his current strength had reached the true energy realm. Only by using the psychic stone pillar could he prove his conjecture. After taking a deep breath, he pressed his palm on the stone pillar and activated the primordial qi in his body. Suddenly, the golden sword embryo released a powerful primordial qi that went through his palm and into the psychic stone pillar. The black lines on the stone pillar reacted and lit up with 2 crimson rays. The crimson rays represented the true energy realm, and the 2 lines represented the second level. True energy realm. Second level? Ji Tianqing immediately raised his eyebrows and revealed an incredulous look. His heartbeat also accelerated a little. I guessed right. The sword embryo is my dantian. I have condensed the sword embryo, which is equivalent to the true energy realm. But why did I skip true energy realm level 1 and reach true energy realm level 2 when I just condensed the sword embryo? His heart was filled with shock and disbelief. No matter who it was, to advance from the body refining realm to the true energy realm, they would first reach true energy realm level 1. After diligent training, they could advance to level 2, then level 3, level 4. This was common knowledge in martial arts. Even a 7 or 8-year-old child knew it. However, Ji Tianqing had directly jumped from body refining realm level 9 to true energy realm level 2, breaking this common knowledge. How could he not be shocked? After a while, Ji Tianqing retracted his palm and calmed down. He frowned and thought for a while, then guessed the reason. A true energy realm level 1 martial artist usually has to train hard for 2 years and accumulate enough primordial qi to advance to level 2. I have cultivated the path of the sword heart and condensed the sword embryo. The primordial qi in my body is many times stronger than normal martial artists. That must be why I jumped to level 2. This is because the path of the sword heart is extraordinary and the red star flower helped me reconstruct my meridians and increase my cultivation. Ji Tianqing was relieved. Now that his strength had been verified by the psychic stone pillar, the last trace of hesitation in his heart had vanished. From today onwards, he would cultivate the sword heart Tao with all his might and advance forward courageously. After leaving the martial arts hall, he prepared to return to the breezy courtyard. Along the way, he suddenly thought. After I came back, I locked it in the room. I didn't ask Wan to take care of it. I don't know how it is now. Back in the room, he closed the door and opened a wooden cabinet in the corner. He opened the door and saw the ice fox curled up in the cupboard, sleeping soundly. Wake up, little fox. I brought you something nice to eat. As he spoke, he extended his finger and poked the little ice fox's head. The ice fox opened its eyes and glanced at him casually, then looked at the fruit in the basket. Leave it there. I'll eat it when I'm hungry. Its tone was a little lazy. After it finished speaking, it lay down and went back to sleep. Ji Tianqing frowned and looked at it carefully. The ice fox's fur was shiny and it was full of energy. It was not as listless and hungry as he had imagined. Ji Tianqing coldly snorted, pointed at it and asked, Little fox, tell me honestly, have you been stealing food these past 2 days? The ice fox opened its eyes and whispered, I only went to the kitchen to eat a roasted chicken. Old Ji, don't make a fuss, okay? Ji Tianxing did not believe it. He sneered, ha ha. Look at the oil on your mouth. Are you sure you ate one? The ice fox raised its head and smiled at him. Okay. I admit it. I ate a total of 46 roasted chickens these 2 days. But, Old Ji, your house is so extravagant. It's not a big deal for me to eat a few roasted chickens when I'm hungry, right? It glanced at Ji Tianxing's face and whispered, Old Ji, you can't be so stingy, right? Ji Tianxing frowned and said unhappily, It's not a big deal for you to eat secretly. I'm just worried that you'll cause trouble in the mansion. That's right. Tell me honestly, did you cause any trouble these 2 days? The ice fox was speechless. Its silver eyes rolled around. It was obvious that it was going to lie. Ji Tianxing saw through its thoughts. He sneered and asked, Tell me, what did you do? The ice fox shrank its body and pretended to be timid. Old Ji, don't be nervous. I was bored. I peeked at a few maids bathing and glanced at a few guards practicing their swordsmanship. You perverted fox! How dare you do such a shameless thing? Ji Tianxing was so angry that he laughed. He raised his hand and was about to slap it. The ice fox quickly shrank into the corner of the cupboard. In a hurry it explained, Old Ji, calm down. We're all girls. It's not a big deal to look at them. It's not like I'll get pregnant. What did you say? Ji Tianxing's hand stopped in midair. Nothing. The ice fox waved its paws and changed the topic. Old Ji, don't always call me a little fox. It sounds like I'm really a fox. You can call me Qianyu, Qian, Yu, or whatever. Also, you promised to protect me and take care of me. How can you make me hide in the cupboard? I also want to live in a spacious and comfortable house. I also want a lot of delicious food. Ji Tianxing's anger dissipated. He nodded and said, Qianyu? Are you sure you want such a girly name? I'll just call you Qian. You stay here and rest well. Don't run around. I'll find a place for you to stay. After comforting the ice fox, he left the breezy courtyard and went to look for his father, Ji Changkong. When he saw his father, Ji Changkong was handling business matters in the study. When he saw Ji Tianxing enter the study in high spirits, the tiredness on Ji Changkong's face dissipated and was replaced by a heartfelt smile. Tianxing, you're done with your seclusion? How was it? Was the journey to the Taiyi Mountains to look for the red star flower smooth? Did you get the red star flower? Ji Tianxing walked to his father's side. After bowing, he sat down and started chatting with his father. Father, although there were many twists and turns and dangers on this trip to the Taiyi Mountains, I survived them all. I've got the red star flower. After 2 days of seclusion, I've refined all of its medicinal power. Now, I've recovered from my dantian and returned to the true energy realm. When he heard the news, Ji Changkong's face lit up with joy. He could not help but say, Good! That's great! Tianxing, you've returned to the past. You didn't let me down. Chapter 46. Ji Changkong did not linger on power and wealth. His life's work and hopes were pinned on Ji Tianxing. When Ji Tianxing's cultivation was crippled, Ji Changkong was extremely worried and angry. His hair turned gray overnight, and his internal injuries relapsed, causing him to vomit blood. Now, Ji Tianxing had finally returned to the true energy realm. How could he not be overwhelmed with emotions? How could he not be excited? After a long time, Ji Changkong's emotions calmed down. He looked thoughtful and said in a deep voice, Tianxing, although you have returned to the true energy realm, this news should be kept a secret for the time being. If our enemies know that you have recovered your strength, they will not be able to sleep and eat in peace. They will definitely do everything they can to deal with you. Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a dignified expression, Father is right. I came to you today to report this matter. When I was in Tai Town, I was attacked by a black-clothed assassin and almost lost my life. I have investigated and found that the black-clothed assassin was from the blood-clothed tower. Ji Changkong's eyes suddenly turned cold and he shouted angrily, "Blood-clothed tower? How dare they assassinate you? It's just an assassin organization in the Cloud State. How dare they attack my Ji clan?" After a pause, he said in a deep voice with murderous intent, "Tianxing, you don't have to worry about this. I will send someone to investigate this matter and find out who is behind it. As for the blood-clothed tower, my Ji clan's experts will flatten it within a month." Humph. Probably because my Ji clan has been hiding our strength for so many years that the major forces in Qingyun country have forgotten the bloody means of my Ji clan's Shadow Sword Hall. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing was also shocked, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. If Shadow Sword Hall takes action, the blood-clothed tower will be destroyed. 10 years ago, Ji Changkong and Lord Sword Master fought at the ultimate sword peak and lost due to internal injuries. Since then, the Ji clan had kept a low profile and kept a low profile. However, as one of the 4 great clans, how could any force provoke the Ji clan? If the Ji clan did not have strong martial strength, how could they occupy half of the forging world in Qingyun country? The Shadow Sword Hall was a secret weapon of the Ji clan. Ji Changkong was personally in charge of the Shadow Sword Hall. The 2 vice hall masters under him were both experts at the 4th stage of the profound comprehending stage. The 36 sword envoys were all at the true energy stage 9. This powerful secret team had secretly helped the Ji clan resolve countless crises and eliminated countless enemies. Ji Tianxing knew that his father was really angry, so he sent the Sword Shadow Hall to raze the blood-clothed tower to the ground. As for the person behind the scenes who hired the blood-clothed tower assassins to assassinate him, he was bound to surface soon. After discussing this matter, Ji Tianxing said with a grave expression, "Father, when I was in Tai Town, I encountered an even more troublesome matter. I met Su Zifeng from the mysterious sword workshop in the eastern suburbs. He actually stole the workshop's mysterious level treasure sword and secretly traded it with someone. After I saw through this matter, Su Zifeng and his entourage swore that they would rather die than confess. Su Zifeng even committed suicide to avoid punishment." Ji Changkong's expression became gloomy again. He asked in a low voice, "Is there such a thing?" Su Zifeng's strength is low, and he acts cautiously. He is also loyal to the Ji clan. Since he did such a thing, there must be someone behind him. The mysterious sword workshop in the eastern suburbs is under the control of second brother Ji Rufeng. This matter must have something to do with him. Ji Changkong frowned and pondered for a moment. He then asked Ji Tianxing for a few more details. After getting the answer, he whispered in a low voice, "Could it be that I've been too active recently and pushed them too hard, so he sent Su Zifeng away from the imperial city and hid in Yunzhou to do the trade?" "Tianxing, I'll investigate this matter immediately. I want to check the accounts of the workshop in the eastern suburbs and see what Ji Rufeng has been doing behind the scenes." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said with some concern, "Father, if second uncle is really disloyal, he will definitely fall out with you. You must pay attention to your safety." "Also, I came here today for another matter." Ji Changkong asked, "Tell me, what is it?" "Father, among the heirlooms of our Ji clan, is there a top-grade mysterious level treasure called the 100 Treasures Brocade Pouch?" Ji Changkong was startled for a moment, then he revealed a gentle smile and nodded. "There is indeed such an item. This treasure is the fruit of your grandfather and 12 master blacksmiths' hard work. They spent 2 years of time and effort and used materials worth 8 million taels of silver. This item looks like a palm-sized brocade pouch on the surface, but there is actually a universe inside. There is a mysterious space that is as big as a study and can store many things. When this item was refined, even the imperial clan was tempted. The emperor even wanted to confer your grandfather the title of duke and give him a city in exchange for the 100 treasures brocade pouch. but your grandfather refused. Speaking of the 100 treasures brocade pouch, Ji Changkong's face was filled with pride. Ji Tianxing heard that the 100 treasures brocade pouch was so precious and hesitated for a moment before asking, "Father, I want that 100 treasures brocade pouch, I have an urgent need." He was racking his brains to think of an excuse to explain himself. He didn't expect Ji Changkong to agree without hesitation. "Tianxing, although the 100 treasures brocade pouch is priceless and incomparably precious, if you want to use it, I will go get it for you." Seeing Ji Tianxing's strange expression, he patted Ji Tianxing's shoulder and smiled. "Tianxing, you don't need to explain anything. Father understands that you have your own plans and ideas. Not to mention a mere 100 treasures brocade pouch, all of the Ji clan's wealth will be yours in the future." With that, Ji Changkong left the study and returned to the secret room in his residence to retrieve the 100 treasures brocade pouch. A quarter of an hour later, he brought the 100 treasures brocade pouch back to the study and handed it over to Ji Tianxing. He also told him how to use it. Ji Tianxing accepted the 100 treasures brocade pouch and thanked his father before bowing and leaving. After returning to his room in the breeze courtyard, he closed the door and carefully studied the 100 treasures brocade pouch. On the surface, this dark red 100 treasures brocade pouch was not much different from an ordinary pouch. Rich people would always have one hanging on their waist. However, in reality, the 100 treasures brocade pouch was made of a very special material. It was impervious to fire and water, and it would not be damaged by blades or axes. Moreover, after Ji Tianxing opened the 100 treasures brocade pouch, he saw that there was indeed a room as big as a study inside. There was nothing in the room, so he installed a bed, a table, and some bedding in the room. Then, he took out Qian Yu and threw it into the 100 treasures brocade pouch. Even though Qian Yu was knowledgeable and considered itself to be of noble status, after seeing such a wondrous 100 treasures brocade pouch, it was filled with shock and curiosity. It jumped up and down in the room as if it was having a lot of fun. It was very satisfied with this room and praised Ji Tianxing, which was a rare occurrence. Chapter 47. Although giving Qian Yu the priceless 100 treasures brocade pouch was a very extravagant thing to do, but to Ji Tianxing this was undoubtedly the best choice. Bringing Qian Yu around all day was too eye-catching. After all, it was a sly and cunning fellow that could speak. After settling Qian Yu down, Ji Tianxing tied the 100 treasures brocade pouch to his belt and entered the secret chamber. Sitting in the middle of the yuan gathering array, he calmly pondered about his next cultivation. The sword embryo has been successfully condensed, and my strength has reached the second level of the true energy realm. Next, I should focus on cultivating and accumulating yuan qi according to the route carved on the second tombstone. The most important way for an ordinary true energy realm martial artist to increase their strength was to continuously cultivate and absorb the yuan qi of heaven and earth to transform it into true energy. The stronger the true energy accumulated in the energy center, the stronger one's strength would be. Ji Tianxing did not have an energy center and was different from ordinary martial artists. His cultivation method was also different. But the sword embryo was his energy center, and he had to absorb the yuan qi of heaven and earth to strengthen the sword embryo. The words carved on the second tombstone in Kenshin's tomb were the second level of the path of the sword. He needed to cultivate according to a specific route and continuously accumulate yuan qi to strengthen the sword embryo. Besides that, he also remembered the words carved on the third tombstone. It was also the cultivation method of the true energy realm. That was the third level of the path of the sword. It mentioned the 9 main meridians and the method to refine the sword meridians. This was different from the cultivation method of an ordinary true energy realm martial artist. Ji Tianxing thought for a while and decided to enter the Kenshin's tomb again to see if the words on the tombstone had changed. He closed his eyes and focused his consciousness on the black hole in his energy center. Swoosh. His consciousness was immediately swallowed by the black hole and entered the Kenshin's tomb. It was still a dark and cold space, surrounded by fog and filled with the aura of death. Ji Tianxing's consciousness condensed into a translucent human figure and floated forward, heading straight for the gigantic sword steel. After a while, he arrived at the pitch-black sword steel. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that the sword steel's aura was sharper and more domineering. His strength had increased by several times, but he felt like his body was covered by needles when he was enveloped by the sword steel's sharp aura. He subconsciously raised his head to look at the sword steel and frowned. The words "Tomb of the Sword God" on the huge sword steel were actually faintly glowing with a blood-red light. But he clearly remembered that the last 2 times he came to the Tomb of the Sword God, he saw that the 4 words were gray. Moreover, he could clearly sense that the originally cold and deathly still sword steel actually had a trace of spirit energy surrounding it. Even though that trace of invisible spiritual qi was somewhat weak, it was real. Ji Tianxing felt a little strange, and couldn't help but frown. How could this be? There is you to you. He suddenly remembered that in the Xianbing cave in the Taiyi Mountains, it was Kenshin's tomb that had saved his life and swallowed Qian Yu's life. At that time, he was very puzzled. Where did Qian Yu's power go when it was swallowed by the black hole? Now that he saw the changes in the sword steel and felt the invisible spirit qi surrounding it, he vaguely guessed the result. So, Qian Yu's life's power was most likely swallowed by this sword steel? This was only his guess and conjecture. He could not verify it for the time being. Forget it, let's talk about this later. Let's take a look at my cultivation method first. He turned and walked towards the 9 tombstones on the left side of the sword steel. The 9 black tombstones had not changed. They still stood in the wilderness, exuding an ancient aura. But Ji Tianxing found that the second tombstone had also become blank. The words engraved on it had disappeared. The second level of the Way of the Sword has also disappeared. Then my understanding should be correct. Next, I will follow the cultivation method and work hard to accumulate spirit qi and improve my strength. He looked at the 3rd tombstone. The words on the tombstone were still there. This was the cultivation method of the 3rd level of the Way of the Sword. Ji Tianxing studied it seriously for a while and confirmed that he had not understood it wrongly. He indeed had to use spirit qi to refine the 9 main meridians into a sword vein. When he finished cultivating the 3rd level of the cultivation method, he should break through the vital energy realm and reach the mystic comprehending realm. Of course, that should be a long time in the future. He recalled the words about the Way of the Sword on the 1st tombstone. He could not help but sigh and murmured in a low voice. Although I have reached the 2nd level of the Way of the Sword, I don't know when I can reach the state of having no sword in my hand and the sword in my heart. Just as he finished speaking, a deep, heavy, and ancient voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Lowly human can actually cultivate the Way of the Sword? It was a deep voice that seemed to belong to a middle-aged man. His tone was full of surprise. Ji Tianxing was stunned and quickly turned his head to look behind him. Who's talking? The ancient voice resounded once more, and its tone was filled with arrogance and disdain. Human boy, with your talent, I'm afraid it's impossible for you to reach the 9th level of the Way of the Sword in this lifetime. It's wishful thinking to reach the state of the sword heart. However, Ji Tianxing wasn't angry. Instead, he stared at the black sword steel with a burning gaze. This time, he heard it clearly. The voice came from the black sword tombstone. You're talking. Who are you? The voice from the black sword tombstone was silent for a while. It seemed to be thinking or recalling. After a while, the voice sounded again. I am the sword soul, the soul of the godly sword. Yes, I am the sword soul, the burial of heaven. Ji Tianxing's eyes widened. His heart was full of shock and disbelief. Sword soul? The burial of heaven? The Ji family was a family of blacksmiths, but he had never heard that a weapon had a soul and could think and speak. This was even more ridiculous than myths and legends. What's more, this sword soul was called the Burial of Heaven. Wasn't this too domineering? I've been here twice before, and this sword soul didn't move. Now that the sword tombstone has swallowed Qianqian's lifetime cultivation, it's surrounded by spiritual energy. The sword soul has appeared. Ji Tianxing thought for a while. Then, he asked tentatively, Sword soul, the burial of heaven, were you sleeping before? Did you wake up after swallowing Qianqian's lifetime cultivation? The burial of heaven was surprised. How can a lowly human possess such wisdom? Human boy, I didn't expect you to be able to guess this. Haha, interesting little guy. The other party's tone was very arrogant. It was as if it was looking down on all living things. Ji Tianxing frowned slightly. But he didn't say anything, because he knew that this sword soul, the burial of heaven, must have an extraordinary origin. He looked up at the black sword tombstone and asked again, Sword soul, the burial of heaven, you said that humans can't practice the way of the sword heart? Can you tell me the origin and mystery of the way of the sword heart? The burial of heaven said coldly, that little beast's cultivation is too weak. It can only wake me up for a short while. I don't have time to waste with you on the way of the sword heart. Try to comprehend it yourself. What realm you can reach will depend on your luck. I'm going to continue sleeping. After that, the ancient and distant voice disappeared. Ji Tianxing called a few times. The burial of heaven didn't respond. He could only give up and leave the Kenshin's tomb. Swoosh! The gray fog space and the Kenshin's tomb immediately disappeared. His consciousness returned to his body. After calming down, he prepared to practice the second level of the way of the sword heart. After activating the elemental gathering array, the chi of heaven and earth from all directions was attracted by the array and gathered in the secret room. Ji Tianxing glanced at the 4 big boxes in the corner of the secret room. He immediately remembered that the little princess had given him those things. They were cultivation resources worth 5 million taels of silver. There were more than a dozen origin-level cultivation techniques and sword Dao manuals. There were also many elixirs and materials. He took out 4 elemental condensing pills from one of the boxes. These were top-grade origin-level elixirs. They were most suitable for true energy realm martial artists. They could provide a large amount of true energy and quickly increase a martial artist's strength. After Ji Tianxing took the 4 elemental condensing pills, he began to cultivate the second level of the way of the sword heart. The elemental condensing pills were quickly refined. Boundless true energy gushed out and flowed rapidly in his body. He focused on cultivating. He guided the true energy into his meridians and circulated it through his body according to a fixed route. Finally, it gathered in the sword embryo in his dantian. This was effective. The sword embryo was replenished by the true energy and began to grow stronger. Chapter 48. The night passed very quickly. The next morning, Ji Tianxing ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret chamber. His sword embryo had grown by 30%, and his cultivation had greatly improved. His strength had also increased by a lot. He had just finished his breakfast and was about to continue his closed-door cultivation when Huan suddenly came to report that little Princess Cuckoo was here again. Ji Tianxing was stunned for a moment, then his lips curled into a playful smile. Looking at the time, she has indeed returned to the Imperial City. However, she went to the Taiyi mountain range to look for the red meteorite flower, but it was a wasted trip. I'm afraid she came today for this matter? As he thought about this, he walked to the courtyard to welcome Ku's arrival. After a while, Ji Ku, who was wearing a light yellow dress, walked into the courtyard with an imperial guard. She was still dressed adorably today, but there was a hint of anger and tiredness on her face. She was pouting, obviously unhappy. Big brother Tianxing, I'm back. She greeted Ji Tianqing, entered the room, and sat down. She said in a low mood, "Big brother Tianqing, I'm sorry to have made you wait for so long. I was a step too late and didn't manage to snatch the red meteorite flower. I've disappointed you." Ji Tianqing already knew the result, so of course he wasn't disappointed. He smiled and comforted her. "It's okay, Cuckoo. I'm already very grateful for your concern." The little princess was still very depressed. She muttered angrily, "It's all my uncle's fault. He's too despicable. He actually snatched the red meteorite flower." After he consumed the red meteorite flower, he went into closed-door cultivation for 2 days and actually repaired his dantian. His strength has reached the true energy realm. Ji Tianqing's expression changed, and he frowned. "Cuckoo, your uncle snatched the red meteorite flower? You mean Luoyan King Jiling?" "Yes, who else could it be?" The little princess nodded, and the expression on her face became even more depressed. "Royal uncle is the same as my royal grandfather. His dantian was damaged, and he could not cultivate Zhen Yuan for the rest of his life. He could only stay in the body refinement realm. He had long coveted the scarlet meteorite flower. He controls the Luo and Yan prefectures and has recruited so many experts. Of course, it would be easy for him to obtain the scarlet meteorite flower. It's a pity that I was a step too late. Otherwise, I would have definitely snatched the scarlet meteorite flower." Ji Tianqing silently listened to the little princess grumbling, but his heart was filled with shock and doubt. The fact that Luoyan King Jiling's dantian was innately damaged was no secret. Most people knew about it. It was reasonable for Jiling to want to use the red star flower to repair her damaged dantian. However, Ji Tianqing knew very well that there was only one red star flower. The people who had obtained the red star flower were him and Yun Yao, not little Prince Jiling. Therefore, when he heard the little princess's words, he immediately thought of Yun Yao. Could it be that Yun Yao gave the stamen of the red star flower to Jiling after taking it from me? When he thought of this, he felt inexplicably stifled. He probed the little princess and asked, "Cuckoo, how did you know about this? Where did your royal uncle get the red star flower? Was it given to him by someone?" The little princess was simple-minded and had complete trust in Ji Tianqing. Therefore, she did not notice anything strange. She answered truthfully, "Yesterday there was news from the Spirit Fire Palace. Only then did I know that royal uncle had been cultivating in seclusion for 2 days. He had already repaired his dantian and reached the true energy realm. I guessed that he must have consumed the red star flower, so I went to the Spirit Fire Palace to question him. He admitted it himself that he had consumed the red star flower. As for the origin of the red star flower, he said that the experts under him had snatched it. After that, I also secretly investigated it. That was indeed the case. Many experts in the Spirit Fire Palace can testify." When he heard this, Ji Tianqing's expression became even more serious. The doubts in his heart grew even more. With Yun Yao's status, there's no way she would personally go to Taiyi mountain range to help the little prince snatch the red star flower. The little prince clearly did not obtain the red star flower, but he said that the experts under him had snatched it. He must be lying. But why would he lie and even announce this to the public? Could it be the little prince was only using the red star flower as an excuse to hide the real reason why he had repaired his dantian and reached the true energy realm? With Ji Tianqing's intellect, he was able to analyze the crux of the problem in a short period of time. When he guessed this point, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. He remembered something. If the little prince did not consume the red star flower, then how did he repair his dantian? The God-seizing pearl. Yes, the God-seizing pearl has this effect. Perhaps, after Ling Yunfei dug out the God-seizing pearl from my body, she did not refine it and gave it to the little prince instead? The little prince had been hiding this all this time. When the red star flower appeared, he finally found an excuse to deliberately lie and release this news. If that's really the case, then besides Ling Yunfei, wouldn't the little prince, Ji Ling, also be involved in plotting against me? When he thought of this, Ji Tianxing felt a chill run down his spine. Unparalleled fury and murderous intent surged from his heart. He had already secretly decided that he would find a chance to test Ling Yunfei's abilities. Then his deductions and suspicions would be confirmed. At this moment, the little princess noticed that he had been silent and his expression was very gloomy. She could not help but ask, "Big brother Tianxing, what's wrong? Are you all right?" Ji Tianxing snapped out of his daze. He suppressed the fury and murderous intent in his heart and calmly shook his head. The little princess looked very guilty. She tugged at his arm and said softly, "Big brother Tianxing, I'm sorry. I didn't manage to snatch the red star flower and couldn't help you. But don't worry, big brother Tianxing. I'll think of other ways to help you. Don't be discouraged. I believe that there must be other ways to help you recover your abilities." Ji Tianxing nodded and revealed a trace of a smile. "Don't worry, Cuckoo. I won't give up so easily. Moreover, I'm already slowly recovering. Don't worry about me." Regarding the matter of him obtaining the red star flower and recovering his abilities of the true energy realm, of course, he had to keep it a secret. Although he trusted the little princess very much, this was his secret and he could not reveal it for the time being. The little princess chatted with him for a while, and gave him a few words of concern before leaving with the guards. Ji Tianxing sent the little princess out of the cool breeze courtyard and returned to his room with a gloomy expression. He decided to quickly investigate the whereabouts of the god-seizing pearl and find a chance to test Ling Yunfei's abilities. If things were really as he guessed and the little prince and the Ling family joined hands to deal with him, then he would face unimaginable danger. Even the Ji family would be implicated. Ji Tianxing pondered for a while before taking out a pen and paper to personally write a letter. After sealing it with wax, he handed it to the guards at the entrance of the courtyard. "Send this letter to the Ling family. You must personally hand it to Ling Yunfei." "Understood." The middle-aged guard respectfully cupped his fists and accepted the order. He carefully kept the letter. Then he left the cool breeze courtyard and immediately rushed to the Ling family. Ji Tianxing returned to his room and entered the secret room to cultivate. He had already made an appointment with Ling Yunfei to meet alone at the plum garden in the western suburbs of the imperial city. At that time, he would test Ling Yunfei's abilities. But before that, he still had to cultivate for a few hours to increase his abilities just in case. In the Ling family residence, in a quiet and elegant courtyard, under the luxuriant banyan tree, a beautiful young girl and a white-robed youth were sitting opposite each other at the stone table. The young girl in a light green dress was Ling Yunfei, and the white-robed youth with a feminine temperament was the little prince. The two of them chatted while drinking tea. Ling Yunfei let out a charming laugh from time to time. Suddenly, the young guard at the entrance of the courtyard walked into the courtyard and quickly walked to Ling Yunfei's side. After bowing, the young guard handed over a letter with a respectful expression. "Eldest Miss, the Ji family sent someone to deliver this letter. They said that they must give it to you." "A letter from the Ji family?" Ling Yunfei raised her eyebrows and a playful sneer appeared on her lips. She reached out and took the letter. There were no words on the letter. She glanced at the little prince before opening the letter. There was not much content in the letter. It was only 3 short sentences, but the name on the letter was Ji Tianxing. After Ling Yunfei finished reading the letter, the sneer on her face deepened. Seeing the little prince's questioning gaze, she took the initiative to explain. "Ji Tianxing, that trash, asked me to meet him at the plum garden in the western suburbs tonight. He said that he has something to discuss with me. This guy went to the Taiyi mountain range and didn't die there. He even dares to ask me to meet him? He's really looking for death. Tonight I will personally deal with him, once and for all." The little prince raised his eyebrows and reminded her. Fei Fei, don't let your guard down. Ji Tianxing is not someone to be underestimated. How about I go with you? Ling Yunfei smiled and shook her head, refusing. He's just a trash who will never return to the true energy realm. What threat can he be? I can easily kill him. I'm about to get my revenge. Brothers, please save it and vote for me. Please, everyone. Chapter 49. The night was dark and the Ji residence was silent. Everyone in the courtyards and houses had already gone to bed. Only the guards were still patrolling the area. Ji Tianxing, who was dressed in black, quietly walked out of Qingfeng courtyard and left through the back door of the Ji residence. After half a day of closed-door cultivation, his sword embryo's power had increased by 40% and his power had improved. He sped towards the west gate under the night sky. His body was as light as a swallow and his speed was as fast as the wind. There was no curfew in the imperial city of Green Cloud. After Ji Tianxing passed through the west gate of the imperial city, he did not take the main road outside the city. Instead, he took a small path to the plum garden. The plum garden in the western suburbs covered an area of 1,000 square meters. It was the largest plum blossom viewing spot outside the imperial city. Every winter, the nobles in the imperial city would go to the plum garden to admire the plum blossoms. However, it was April now. There were only plum blossoms left in the garden. There was no scenery to admire. During the day, the plum garden was deserted and deserted. At night, the plum garden was even quieter. Even the wandering ghosts were not willing to enter. The reason why Ji Tianxing chose this place was, firstly, to avoid being noticed, and secondly, to test Ling Yunfei's strength. He knew that Ling Yunfei had always wanted to kill him. Therefore, he believed that Ling Yunfei would definitely attend the appointment after receiving the letter. After arriving at the plum garden, Ji Tianxing went straight to the peak of the mountain and entered a manor. This manor was called the Plum Manor. During the season when the plum blossoms were in full bloom, people who came to admire the plum blossoms would gather and rest here. However, the Plum Manor was completely dark now. Not even a shadow could be seen. Ji Tianxing and Ling Yunfei had agreed to meet in the Plum Manor. He looked around the manor and then leaped 20 feet into the air, landing on the roof of the main hall. This place was the highest. If it was daytime, he could see everything within a 10-mile radius. Even if it was a moonless night, Ji Tianxing could still observe the surroundings of the Plum Manor while hiding on the roof. If Ling Yunfei brought an expert with her, he would be able to detect it in advance and take precautions. Although the possibility of this was not high, he had to be cautious. Time passed by quietly. An hour passed by very quickly. 9 o'clock had arrived. Ji Tianxing crouched on the roof, his sharp eyes looking outside the Plum Manor's gate, waiting patiently. Sure enough, after a short while, light footsteps could be heard outside the door. A slim black figure quietly crossed the gate and entered the courtyard of the Plum Manor. This figure was dressed in black and wore a veil. However, Ji Tianxing was too familiar with this figure. He immediately recognized that she was Ling Yunfei. Ling Yunfei, who was dressed in black, held a sword tightly and looked around with sharp eyes. Seeing that there was no ambush in the plum plantation, she lowered her voice and said, "Ji Tianxing, I'm here, you can come out now." Ji Tianxing observed from above for a moment. Seeing that Ling Yunfei didn't bring any attendants or guards, and that there was no ambush around the Plum Manor, he showed himself to meet her. He jumped down from the roof and landed lightly in front of Ling Yunfei, about 20 feet away. He took off his mask and looked at Ling Yunfei with cold eyes. His mouth curled up into a sneer. "Ling Yunfei, you really kept your promise and came alone." Ling Yunfei also took off her veil and said sarcastically, "I was afraid that if I brought my guards, you would have run away in fear and wouldn't dare to show up. Besides, you're just a trash with a destroyed dantian. What's there to be afraid of?" Ji Tianxing frowned and a cold light flashed in his eyes. "Ling Yunfei, you're so confident and arrogant. Have you already refined the God-seizing pearl, and got my blood and power? Ling Yunfei's body shook and her expression changed slightly. She was secretly vigilant. This bastard. He asked me to meet here tonight just to ask about the God-seizing pearl? Has he found out something? The night was dark, and the change in her expression was hard to notice. She sneered calmly, "Haha, Ji Tianxing, do you still want to take back the God-seizing pearl?" "Of course not." Ji Tianxing shook his head and sneered. "I just want to see who you gave the God-seizing pearl to?" As soon as he finished his words, he suddenly pounced on Ling Yunfei as fast as an arrow leaving the bow. While he was still in the air, he had already pulled out his blood dragon sword and slashed 3 blood-red sword lights at Ling Yunfei's head. Ling Yunfei didn't expect that Ji Tianxing would pull out his sword and attack her after saying 3 words. Where did his confidence and courage come from? Ling Yunfei immediately came back to her senses and pulled out her sword. She slashed a few cold lights at Ji Tianxing. Ding ding ding! The 2 swords collided 3 times in an instant, producing 3 crisp sounds, breaking the tranquility of the plum orchard. Ji Tianxing's blood dragon sword was bounced away and his body trembled as he took 3 steps back. Ling Yunfei's face was also pale and she took 4 steps back before stopping. Her sore and numb shoulders and the cracked web between her thumb and forefinger made her realize an unbelievable problem. You've recovered to the true energy realm." Ling Yunfei's eyes widened and revealed an unbelievable expression. She couldn't help but exclaim. "So what if I am?" Ji Tianxing sneered mockingly. "You haven't improved at all. How disappointing!" Then he swung his sword at Ling Yunfei again and attacked her fiercely with the 10 mysterious swordplay. In an instant, more than 10 dazzling sword lights flashed and cut through the dark night, enveloping Ling Yunfei. The biting cold energy and cold light rushed at Ling Yunfei, causing her to feel more pressure. She could only retreat. At this moment, she even had an illusion in her heart. She seemed to have seen Ji Tianxing from half a month ago, the number 1 genius of the Imperial City, who was at the 7th level of the true energy realm. Ding ding dang dang, sounds of metal colliding rang out again. Ling Yunfei was forced back 8 steps, but the sword still left a wound on her right arm. Blood gushed out from the finger-long wound and soaked her clothes, but she didn't have time to care. Ji Tianxing's expression was cold. He didn't say a word and attacked with all his strength. Another 9 dazzling sword lights splashed out. Ding 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 ding. Ling Yunfei gritted her teeth and blocked the 7th sword, but she couldn't block the 8th sword. Clang! The sword in her hand was knocked out of her hand, and fell outside the courtyard wall. When the 9th sword light came, she had no power to resist. Swoosh! The sword light instantly pierced her lower abdomen and penetrated her dantian. The extremely sharp blood dragon sword and sword chi directly destroyed her dantian. The true energy that she had painstakingly cultivated for several years instantly collapsed and dissipated. Not only did Ling Yunfei lose to Ji Tianxing's sword, her dantian was destroyed on the spot and her cultivation was crippled. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, blood for blood. Ji Tianxing withdrew his blood dragon sword and stood with the sword in his hand, staring coldly at Ling Yunfei. Ling Yunfei retreated to the corner of the courtyard with a pale face. She bent over in pain and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. She leaned against the courtyard wall and covered her blood-stained abdomen with both hands. She stared at Ji Tianxing with eyes full of fear. "Impossible! This is impossible! You actually destroyed my dantian and crippled my cultivation." Ling Yunfei screamed crazily, her face filled with fear and despair. Before coming to the plum garden, she was full of confidence. She thought that she could kill Ji Tianxing tonight and get rid of all future troubles. However, she never thought that Ji Tianxing's strength would actually recover in such a strange manner. In the end, she was defeated by Ji Tianxing's sword. Her cultivation foundation was crippled, and she became a cripple from then on. She couldn't believe or accept such a shocking turn of events. Chapter 50. Fear, despair, and unwillingness filled Ling Yunfei's heart and soul. She sat weakly in the corner of the courtyard with her back against the brick wall. Her face was covered in blood and tears. Ji Tianqing stood in front of her with his sword in hand. Looking at her miserable appearance, he didn't feel the slightest bit of pity. In his heart there was only relief, only joy. Ling Yunfei had treated him like this at the peak of Heaven Pavilion Mountain. She dug out the God-seizing pearl, destroyed his dantian, and even carried him to the Sky Pillar Sect's entrance exam while he was unconscious. She had turned him into a trash that everyone ridiculed. After that, she arrogantly came to break off the engagement and spread the news. How vicious was Ling Yunfei's method! It was so vicious that it made one's hair stand on end. Ji Tianqing had only crippled her. That was already very merciful. He said indifferently, "Ling Yunfei, you haven't improved at all. You're still at the 5th level of the true energy realm. You didn't refine the God-seizing pearl. Speak. Who did you give the God-seizing pearl to? Who ordered you to murder me?" Ling Yunfei raised her head to look at him. Her blood-stained face suddenly revealed a disdainful sneer. So what if you've recovered your strength? You're still not on the same level as him. You're just the young master of a rich man in the countryside, and he has great ambitions. One day, he will become a true dragon that soars in the 9 heavens. Ji Tianqing's face darkened. His eyes flashed with murderous intent. Swoosh! He waved the blood dragon sword and pointed it at Ling Yunfei's heart. "Who is he? Speak. Otherwise you'll die." The sneer on Ling Yunfei's face froze. Fear flashed through her eyes. She stubbornly raised her head and screamed angrily, "Ji Tianqing, you want to kill me? You beast with a human face. Did you forget? Back then, you said that you loved me with no regrets and that you would protect me for the rest of your life. You are such a hypocritical and despicable hypocrite." Ji Tianqing's expression was still cold, his face full of disdain as he shouted, "The person who said he loves you and wants to protect you is the Ji Tianqing that you used in the past, not the current me. I treated you like a family member and took good care of you, but you destroyed my martial arts foundation and reputation. For a vicious woman like you, it would be too easy for me to kill you with my sword." Seeing his murderous aura, Ling Yunfei panicked. Her eyes were filled with fear. After a short silence, she suddenly made up her mind and looked up at Ji Tianqing. "Ji Tianqing, even if you kill me, I will never tell you. Furthermore, even if I die, he will definitely avenge me." Ji Tianqing frowned and shouted coldly, "If that's the case, then go to hell." Just as he held the blood dragon sword tightly and was about to pierce Ling Yunfei's heart, he suddenly heard a sharp sound. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 cold lights pierced through the night and shot towards the back of his head and neck like arrows. Hidden weapons! Ji Tianqing's heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously dodged to the side and leaped 20 feet away. The 2 concealed weapons immediately missed and hit the green brick wall of the courtyard, producing 2 crisp, ding-ding sounds and sparks. At the same time, a figure jumped out from the darkness and rushed to Ling Yunfei's side. This figure carried Ling Yunfei, who was curled up in the corner, and jumped over the wall in a flash and went into the plum garden. Ji Tianqing hurriedly jumped over the courtyard wall as well. After landing on the ground, he looked around with a sharp gaze. However, that figure had already disappeared into the night. No one knew where it went. Ji Tianqing could tell that the figure was quite powerful. He must be an expert at LV7 True Element Realm or above. He did not chase after him. Even if he did, it would be useless. He could not catch up with him. He frowned and thought for a moment. Then, he sneered and turned to leave the plum garden. He walked down the mountain. Although that figure was dressed in black and had a veil covering his face, he was still able to see through it. Ji Tianqing could tell from the figure's body shape that it must be a young man who was tall and thin. Thinking of this, he vaguely had an answer in his heart. A black horse carriage was speeding on the official road in the western suburbs, heading straight for the west gate of the imperial city. In the dark carriage, Ling Yunfei was leaning against the corner. Her hands were covering her bleeding abdomen. Her face was pale and weak. There was another person sitting beside Ling Yunfei in the carriage. He was thinking silently about something. This person was a young man with a feminine temperament. He was wearing a black robe and took off his mask, revealing a handsome and fair face. Ling Yunfei was on the verge of fainting due to her serious injuries. She murmured weakly, "Little prince, I'm so cold, can you hug me, please?" The little prince was indifferent. His face was as cold as ice as he was still thinking. Ling Yunfei was silent for a moment. Then, she said intermittently, "Little Prince Ji Tianxing. He has already recovered to true element realm. He's starting to suspect you and me. You have to be careful." Only then did the little prince gather his thoughts, and a disdainful sneer appeared on his lips. So what if he recovers to true element realm? He's still not this prince's match. Feifei, your dantian has been destroyed. Your martial arts foundation has been destroyed. You have no value to this prince anymore. Ling Yunfei's expression froze. Her face was full of astonishment. What? Little prince, you? The little prince looked at her with a smile, but his eyes were as cold as ice. Feifei, you once said that you loved this prince more than yourself. You were willing to give up everything for this prince. Now it's time for you to fulfill your promise. As he said that, he suddenly grabbed his sword and stabbed it into Ling Yunfei's heart. Ling Yunfei's eyes widened. Her face was full of fear and disbelief. She never would have thought that the little prince who had been so gentle and sweet to her would personally stab a sword into her heart. She glared at the little prince with a heart full of unwillingness. Blood kept flowing out of her mouth as she weakly asked, "Why?" The little prince still had a smile on his face. He reached out to touch her face. His movements were as gentle as always and filled with tenderness. "This will be the last thing you'll do for this prince before you die. This prince will send your body back to the Ling family and tell your father that it was Ji Tianxing who killed you. Don't worry, your father will do anything to avenge you." Ling Yunfei's eyes widened even more. Endless anger and resentment poured out of her eyes, as well as deep regret. "Ji Ling, you, so despicable." It was just a few short words, but it used up the last of her strength. Large amounts of dark red blood flowed out of her mouth, dyeing her clothes red. The life in her eyes disappeared. Her breathing had already stopped, but her eyes were still wide open. She was unwilling to die in peace? Today there are still 4 chapters. Please add this book to your bookshelf and give me 2 recommendation vote. Thank you. Chapter 51. In the middle of the night, the Ling family should have been sleeping soundly under the curtain of night. However, at this moment, the main hall of the Ling residence was brightly lit. There were many people walking back and forth, making sad and angry sounds from time to time. In the middle of the brightly lit main hall, there was a bamboo mat and a brocade bedding on the floor. On the blood-stained bedding, there was a young girl in black. Her face was pale and her eyes were wide open. This corpse was Ling Yunfei, who had died long ago. A few Ling family elders were surrounding the corpse. They were discussing and cursing in a low voice. A graceful and elegant middle-aged woman knelt beside the corpse, wailing in grief. The head of the family, Ling Sihai, stood in the middle of the hall and looked at Ling Yunfei's corpse with a pale face. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Everyone could see that his heart was filled with anger and killing intent. His eyes had turned blood-red. Just a few minutes ago, a carriage drove into the Ling residence and brought Ling Yunfei's corpse to him. The owner of the carriage, the little prince, told him personally that Ling Yunfei was going to meet Ji Tianxing at the plum garden in the western suburbs. When he heard the news and rushed to the plum garden to save her, he only saw Ling Yunfei's corpse lying in a pool of blood. After that, the little prince took out Ji Tianxing's invitation letter and gave it to Ling Sihai. Then, he left quietly. Ling Sihai could no longer hold back his anger and killing intent. He looked at the knight outside the main door coldly and roared in a low voice, "Ji family, Ji Tianxing. No matter what, I will definitely kill you and cut you into pieces to pay for my daughter's life." The roar filled with killing intent reverberated in the main hall of the Ling residence. All the elders of the Ling family were also in a heavy mood. They cursed and swore to bury Ji Tianxing with Ling Yunfei. After Ji Tianxing returned to the Ji residence, he quietly returned to Qingfeng courtyard. He changed out of his black clothes and sat at the table in front of the window, deep in thought. He had already achieved his goal in the plum garden tonight. Things were just as he had guessed. Ling Yunfei didn't refine the God-seizing bead, but gave it to someone else. The person who got the God-seizing pearl was probably the man in black who saved Ling Yunfei in the plum village. He recalled the figure of the little prince, Ji Ling, and compared it with the black-clothed man. After a short moment, he had an answer in his heart, and a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. A useless prince with a damaged dantian secretly colluded with Ling Yunfei and used the God-seizing pearl to steal my bloodline and power. After it's done, I'll use the red star flower as an excuse to release the news at the right time. This way, I can conceal the fact that he has repaired his dantian. Luoyan King Jiling, is it really you? If he had not discovered the clues and grasped the various clues, he would never have thought that this matter would involve the king of Luoyan. Although he did not have any concrete evidence to prove that the person who had obtained the God-seizing pearl was the king of Luoyan, he was confident that the king of Luoyan would be able to obtain the God-seizing pearl. However, based on the clues he currently had, he was 80% sure that the king of Luoyan was the real mastermind. The Ling family alone was already very difficult to deal with. If the king of Luoyan, who controlled the two prefectures and was even more powerful, Ji Tianxing, only felt the pressure increase explosively. His heart felt heavy, as if a huge rock was pressing down on it. Tonight, I crippled Ling Yunfei, and the investigation led to the king of Luoyan. He will definitely do something. Next, my situation will be even more dangerous. If I'm not careful, I'll be doomed eternally. The thick sense of danger made his thirst for power even more urgent. He didn't dare to waste any time. He was determined to increase his power as much as possible before the crisis arrived. Thus, after he calmed down, he entered the secret room to cultivate. These 2 days of hard work had increased his power by 70%. Soon, he would be able to advance to true energy realm level 3. The fourth courtyard of the Ji mansion was the residence of the second elder, Ji Rufeng. In a dark secret room hidden underground, 2 people were whispering to each other. The burly Ji Rufeng, who wore a purple brocade robe, was sitting on a wooden armchair, deep in thought. In front of him stood a tall young man in luxurious clothes. It was Ji Hao. Ji Rufeng spoke with a serious expression. "However, the matter of Tai Town has been exposed. Ji Chongkong is already investigating the accounts of the workshop in the eastern suburbs. He also secretly ordered people from the Shadow Sword Hall to investigate me. You have to be more careful in the near future. Don't give yourself away." "Father, I understand." Ji Hao nodded. He took out a thumb-sized scroll from his sleeve and reported in a low voice. "Father, I just received a pigeon message. The Ling family's Ling Yunfei is dead." Ji Rufeng raised his eyebrows. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. "Ling Yunfei is dead? Who killed her?" Ji Hao hurriedly answered truthfully. "According to the Ling family, it was Ji Tianxing who killed her. Tonight, Ji Tianxing killed her in the plum garden in the western suburbs." Ji Rufeng frowned and said with a serious expression, "I didn't expect that bastard Ji Tianxing to recover his power. This is unbelievable." He pondered for a moment and suddenly revealed a cold smile. Ling Yunfei was killed. With such a big thing happening, the Ling family definitely won't swallow this. There will definitely be a good show tomorrow. Ji Hao also nodded in agreement. He sneered. I think Ling Sihai will definitely bring a large group of experts to the Ji mansion and force Ji Tianxing to hand over Ji Tianxing, right? Ji Rufeng's eyes flashed. He said in a low voice, This is an excellent opportunity. It seems that I have to make a trip to the Ling family immediately. Ji Hao was stunned. He asked in confusion, Father, why are you going to the Ling family at this time? Ling Yunfei just died. The Ling family must hate our Ji family to the bone. Although this matter has nothing to do with us, if you go to the Ling family at this time, it's hard to guarantee that they won't vent their anger on you. Ji Rufeng looked at him with a smile and said meaningfully, However, you're still too young. You still don't understand the logic behind this. The Ling family wants Ji Tianxing to pay with his life. Ji Tianxing will definitely risk his life to protect Ji Tianxing. However, if Ji Tianxing dies, Ji Tianxing will lose his backing and will be at the mercy of the Ling family. The Ling family's target is Ji Tianxing, and our target is Ji Chongkong. If I want to join forces with the Ling family to kill Ji Chongkong, do you think the Ling family will refuse my cooperation? Ji Hao suddenly understood and revealed a smug sneer. Haha, of course the Ling family won't refuse. In fact, it's exactly what they want. Father, this move of yours is really too brilliant. This is the perfect opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. If this plan succeeds, Ji Tianxing and his son will die tomorrow, and the Ji family will completely fall into our hands. Ji Rufeng nodded slightly and revealed a smug smile. He said earnestly, However, in the future, you must learn more and think more when you encounter problems. This way, you can obtain the greatest benefits with the smallest price. Ji Hao nodded with deep admiration and hurriedly cupped his hands. Father, this child will remember your teachings. And it's good that you remember. Ji Rufeng nodded and turned to the door of the secret room. You stay here and wait for news. Father will go to the Ling family to find Ling Sihai. Brothers, I've added 2 chapters today. There's a total of 5 chapters. Please recommend, bookmark, tip, and give me a 5-star rating. Little he is begging everyone. Thank you very much. Chapter 52. When the sun rose, Ji Tianxing ended his cultivation and walked out of the secret room. After a night of cultivation, his strength had increased by 30%, and the power of his sword embryo had become even stronger. He washed up and started eating breakfast. At this moment, a young guard quickly walked into Qingfeng courtyard and said respectfully, First young master, master has sent word for you to go to the study. Ji Tianxing put down his bowl and chopstick. He raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, Father is looking for me? Could it be that there's a result? He quickly walked out of the room and hurried to his father's study. When he saw his father, Ji Chongkong was busy in the study. His expression was serious and focused. When he saw Ji Tianxing, Ji Chongkong put down the account books in his hands and rubbed his forehead tiredly. Tianxing, come here quickly. Father has something to tell you. Ji Chongkong waved at him with a serious expression. Ji Tianxing quickly walked to his father's side. He glanced at the account books on the table and knew what was going on. Father, is there any progress on the eastern outskirts workshop? Yes. Ji Chongkong nodded with a gloomy expression. He lowered his voice and said, I've already checked the eastern outskirts workshop's accounts. There's no record of the goods Su Zifeng traded in Tai Town. There's also no agreement between the workshop owner and Ji Rufeng. Ji Tianxing had expected this and was not surprised. He asked, Father, have you investigated second uncle? Was he the one who ordered this? Ji Chongkong raised his eyebrows and a cold glint flashed through his eyes. I'm having Shadow Sword Hall secretly investigate him. I can't confront him face to face for the time being. It's not time yet. However, I'm 80% sure that he was the one who ordered this. In the past 10 years, his ambition has grown bigger and bigger. He's been doing a lot of things in secret and is becoming more and more daring. Ji Tianxing asked again, Father, have you found out who the person who traded with Su Zifeng is? The leader is a middle-aged man. He has the face of a horse and his features are very distinct. Ji Changkong fell silent when this question was brought up. He seemed to be hesitating whether he should tell Ji Tianxing the result. After considering for a while, he lowered his voice and said the result. Tianxing, the Shadow Sword Hall, has found out that the person who made the deal with Su Zifeng is one of the customers of the Spirit Fire Palace. A diner from the Spirit Flame Palace. Ji Tianxing's pupils shrank as shock flashed through his eyes. Is it an expert that the little prince has recruited? Diners were like hangers-on. They were capable people who were taken in by the rich and powerful. They worked hard for their masters. The little prince, Ji Ling, was a worldly person and was courteous to the wise, so he had won over many experts and talents to work for him. Ji Tianxing would never have thought that the person who secretly made a deal with Su Zifeng and bought the Ji family's profound weapon-treasured sword was actually him. He frowned and doubtfully asked Ji Changkong, "Father, the young prince has purchased many mystic weapons and treasured swords from our Ji family these past few years. Logically speaking, the officials and generals of the Luo and Yan prefectures should be fully equipped. Even if he wanted to replenish the weapons for the generals, he could go through the official account. Why would he need to make a deal in secret?" Ji Changkong shook his head and said with a grave expression, "The official transactions are still the same as before. They are all checked by the imperial family. There are no problems." However, the young prince did not buy the mystic weapons and treasured swords for the generals of the Luo and Yan prefectures. They are for his own personal use. Tianxing, there is something that I haven't told you. 3 years ago, the young prince came to me in secret. He wanted to buy a large number of mystic weapons from the Ji family at a low price. His purpose was unknown. This matter is of great importance. If the imperial family found out, he would be accused of treason. Thus, I firmly refused. I thought that he had given up on this idea. I didn't expect that he would secretly collude with Ji Rufeng and make a deal in secret. It seems that this person's ambition is not small. I'm afraid he has other plans. Ji Tianxing was even more shocked. After a moment of contemplation, he nodded and said, "So that's how it is. The young prince, Ji Ling, appears to be virtuous, but I didn't expect him to be so shrewd. Father, this matter must be thoroughly investigated. Otherwise, when the matter is exposed, I'm afraid that the Ji family will also be implicated and cause a great disaster." Ji Changkong nodded in agreement and said, "I understand. I have ordered the sword envoys of the Shadow Sword Hall to investigate this matter. We must get to the bottom of this." Ji Tianxing trusted his father and the Shadow Sword Hall very much. He nodded and did not say anything else. At this time, a middle-aged guard suddenly rushed to the study and anxiously reported, "Master, something bad has happened. The Ling family head, Ling Sihai, brought many experts and blocked the entrance of our Ji mansion." Ji Changkong and Ji Tianxing's expressions changed at the same time. They looked at each other and saw the doubt in each other's eyes. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought to himself, "Could it be that I crippled Ling Yunfei, and Ling Sihai came to the mansion to seek revenge in a fit of rage? But that shouldn't be the case. No matter how angry Ling Sihai is, he wouldn't kill his way to the Ji family because of this, right?" Ji Changkong also frowned and asked the guard in a deep voice, "What's going on? What does the Ling family want to do? Start a war with the Ji family?" The middle-aged guard quickly cupped his hands and answered, "Master, Ling Sihai said that you must hand over the eldest young master today. He wants the eldest young master to pay with his life for Ling Yunfei. Master, quickly go and take a look." Ling Sihai brought 8 experts and said that if you don't show up, he will bring people to kill his way into the mansion. Hearing this, Ji Tianxing and Ji Changkong's expressions changed at the same time. They cried out in alarm, "Ling Yunfei is dead? She's dead?" Ji Tianxing frowned fiercely. His face became as cold as ice and his eyes flashed with deep doubt. He thought to himself, impossible. Last night, I only crippled Ling Yunfei's cultivation and she was rescued. With her injuries at that time, she shouldn't have lost her life. Moreover, Ling Yunfei carried healing pills with her and the Ling family is an elixir family. She can't have died. Someone must have killed her and deliberately pushed the blame to me. Of course, Ji Changkong knew that there was something fishy about this matter. He saw Ji Tianxing's strange expression and asked, Tianxing, do you know what happened? Ji Tianxing didn't hide it and said truthfully, Father, last night, I met Ling Yunfei at the plum garden in the western suburbs and fought with her. I destroyed her dantian and crippled her cultivation. However, just as I was about to kill her, she was rescued by a black-clothed man. With her injuries at that time, she shouldn't have died. Ji Changkong's eyes flashed with a trace of joy. That's great. Tianxing, I didn't expect your strength to recover so quickly. That Ling Yunfei is at the 5th level of the true energy realm, but you defeated her and crippled her dantian. Previously, she was the one who caused your cultivation to be crippled and even caused you to suffer great humiliation. Don't talk about crippling her dantian. Even if you killed her with a sword, she deserved it. Ji Tianxing remained silent, but he muttered in his heart, Father is really protective of me. Ling Sihai has already brought people to kill at the mansion, but Father is still happy about my recovery. Chapter 53. A moment later, Ji Changkong and Ji Tianxing retrieved their profound weapons and rushed to the entrance of the Ji mansion. When they arrived at the first courtyard, they saw that Ling Sihai and the others were already standing in the spacious courtyard. At the entrance of the Ji mansion, the corpses of several guards lay on the ground in pools of blood. They had already stopped breathing. Ling Sihai, dressed in a black robe, stood in the middle of the courtyard with a cold and stern expression. His entire body was filled with anger and murderous intent. Behind him were 8 middle-aged men with swords and sabers. They were all martial arts experts above the 7th level of the true element realm. They also had a murderous aura. More than 10 guards of the Ji mansion had already gathered around the courtyard. They were all holding swords and sabers as they stared at Ling Sihai and the others. Without anyone giving the order, these guards did not dare to act rashly. The second elder of the Ji family, Ji Rufeng, and several leaders of the Ji family, as well as some of the Ji family disciples, were standing at the entrance of the meeting hall. Ji Rufeng pretended to be angry as he spoke loudly. He constantly tried to persuade Ling Sihai to calm down so that he could resolve this matter peacefully. However, he was only talking. He did not take out any weapons nor did he order the guards to attack. The leaders and young disciples of the Ji family all followed his lead. They did not have the slightest bit of the Ji family's courage. When the crowd saw that Ji Changkong and Ji Tianxing had arrived, they showed an expectant expression. Their gazes gathered on the two of them. Ji Changkong glanced at the corpses at the entrance and coldly glanced at Ji Rufeng and the others. He held his sword and walked into the courtyard. He looked at Ling Sihai with a sharp gaze and shouted with a murderous aura, Ling Sihai, you dare to bring people into the Ji mansion? Do you think that there is no one in the Ji family? Then, his gaze swept across the 8 experts behind Ling Sihai. He angrily shouted again, Who was it that killed my Ji family guards? I, Ji Changkong, will make him pay with his life. As Ji Changkong's voice fell, his entire body emitted an invisible and powerful murderous aura that swept towards Ling Sihai and the others. Ling Sihai stood straight like a sharp sword in the courtyard. He was not intimidated by Ji Changkong's killing intent at all. He glared fiercely at Ji Tianxing, his eyes bloodshot with rage. He growled in a deep voice, Ji Tianxing, you killed my son, Yunfei. I will tear you into pieces to comfort Yunfei's soul in heaven. As he spoke, he could no longer restrain his murderous aura and suddenly drew his sword. Swish, swish. Ling Sihai, who was at the 4th level of the Tongxian realm, brandished his sword with all his strength, and actually slashed out 3 dark green sword rays, shooting towards Ji Tianqing, who was 50 feet away. Each sword ray was over 2 feet long and 3 fingers wide, containing a powerful and violent force. Ji Tianqing was sizing up Ling Sihai and the 8 experts behind him. He was not prepared for Ling Sihai to attack as soon as they met. Seeing the 3 sword lights slashing at him at high speed, his expression changed, and he subconsciously wanted to retreat. At this moment, Ji Changkong's figure flashed and rushed 3 feet away, blocking in front of him. Clang! Ji Changkong instantly unsheathed his treasured sword and unleashed a dazzling cold light that slashed towards the 3 sword beams. Bang! 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 In a series of muffled sounds, the 3 sword lights that Ling Sihai sent out were all shattered. The sharp and violent sword chi also forced Ling Sihai to take 2 steps back, his face ashen. Ji Changkong pointed his sword at the ground and stood proudly in the middle of the field. He shouted, "Ling Sihai, if you want to kill my son, Tianqing, I will chop off your head first." Ji Changkong. Ling Sihai roared with rage and glared at him. He shouted, "Yesterday, Ji Tianqing sent a letter to my daughter, Yunfei, and asked her to meet him at the plum garden in the western suburbs tonight. Last night, my daughter, Yunfei, was killed by him in the plum garden. A life for a life, a debt must be repaid. This is the law of heaven and earth. Ji Changkong, if you don't hand over Ji Tianqing today, don't blame me for starting a massacre." Ji Changkong immediately sneered and said, "He, Ling Sihai, you keep saying that my son, Tianqing, killed Ling Yunfei. Where is your evidence? If you don't have evidence, then you are slandering and slandering me. You want evidence, right?" Ling Sihai also sneered in response. He took out a letter from his sleeve and threw it at Ji Changkong. "This is the letter that Ji Tianqing wrote to Yunfei. This is the evidence." A cold light flashed in Ji Changkong's eyes as he reached out to receive the letter without changing his expression. He opened the letter and took a few glances before throwing it on the ground. He sneered and said, What can a letter mean? Can this letter mean that my son, Tianqing, killed Ling Yunfei with his own hands? Ling Sihai. We were good friends and almost became in-laws. However, your daughter, Ling Yunfei, despicably and shamelessly murdered Tianqing, causing his cultivation to be crippled and even being ridiculed by the world. Not to mention that Tianqing didn't kill your daughter. Even if he really did kill Ling Yunfei, your daughter deserved it. Ling Sihai was so angry that he laughed and his face darkened. All the muscles and bones in his body were stretched to the limit, making cracking sounds. It was obvious that he had pushed his strength to the limit. Ji Changkong, since you are determined to protect Ji Tianqing, then don't blame me for being ruthless. All of you attack. Kill Ji Changkong first, then kill Ji Tianqing to avenge Yunfei. The furious Ling Sihai waved his hand and gave the order to surround and kill Ji Changkong on the spot. 8 murderous martial Dao experts had been secretly accumulating their strength and were ready to attack. At this moment, after receiving Ling Sihai's order, they immediately pounced on Ji Changkong with ferocious faces and brandished their swords and sabers to surround him. Ling Sihai also roared angrily and pounced on Ji Changkong fiercely, waving his sword and splashing out sword light. 9 martial Dao experts surrounded Ji Changkong, and each of them used their ultimate skills to attack him. However, Ji Changkong was fearless as he faced Ling Sihai and the other 8 experts with his sword alone, showing the demeanor of an expert. He used the Ji family's 10 profound swordplay and displayed an extremely profound attainment in the way of the sword. Wherever the sword light went, it forced everyone to retreat. With his strength at the 6th level of the profound comprehension realm, it was enough to look down on everyone present and look down on Ling Sihai and the other 8 martial Dao experts. After all, Ling Sihai was only at the 4th level of the profound comprehension realm. Among the 8 martial Dao experts, 3 were at the 8th and 9th level of the profound comprehension realm, and only 5 were at the 1st to 3rd level of the profound comprehension realm. Even though Ling Sihai and the others had the advantage of numbers, they could not do anything to Ji Changkong. Instead, they were forced into a fluster and were in an extremely sorry state. In an instant, saber light and sword shadows appeared in the courtyard, radiating cold light in all directions. The violent and devastating sword chi swept through the space within a radius of 20 feet, carving gullies in the limestone floor. Ding ding dang dang. The sound of saber and sword colliding could be heard incessantly. The incomparably intense battle dazzled everyone from the Ji family, and they all held their breath. In just a few breaths, the two sides had exchanged more than 10 moves. At this moment, Ji Changkong forced the surrounding experts back with his sword. He jumped out of the crowd and retreated 10 feet away. The battle stopped temporarily. Ji Changkong was unharmed and his breathing was still steady, but his face was slightly pale. On the other hand, Ling Sihai and the others were in a sorry state. All of them were injured. The 2 profound comprehension realm experts were the most miserable. Their chests, back, and shoulders had been stabbed. Their clothes were dyed red with blood and their hair was disheveled. The other profound comprehension realm experts also had 1 or 2 sword wounds on their bodies, but none of them were fatal. Even Ling Sihai, who was the strongest, had a sword wound on his chest. In the bloody wound, one could even see a section of white bone. Seeing this scene, everyone in the Ji family had an incredulous expression and exclaimed in surprise. Only Ji Rufeng and Ji Hao's faces were gloomy. Their eyes flickered with contemplation. No one knew what they were thinking. Chapter 54. Ji Changkong stood proudly on the spot and glared at Ling Sihai. Ling Sihai, how dare you and these 8 pieces of trash come to my Ji mansion? I'll give you one last chance. If you retreat now, I can spare your lives. Otherwise, all of you will be buried here. Hearing Ji Changkong's words, the 8 experts of the Ling clan secretly exchanged glances. Ling Sihai also remained silent. Ji Rufeng suddenly thought of something and his lips curled into a sneer. Ji Tianxing had been worried about his father's safety. He had been paying close attention to the battle, and his heart was clenched. Hearing his father's words, he was shocked and thought of something. That's right. Although father is at the 6th level of the profound comprehension realm, he has hidden injuries. Recently, his injuries have been acting up frequently, so he can't fight at all. Just now, he forcefully used his true origin. I'm afraid that his injuries have already acted up. He won't be able to hold on for long. Thinking of this, Ji Tianxing's heart was burning with worry. After a moment of silence, Ling Sihai suddenly raised his head and sneered. Ji Changkong, even though you're strong enough, you suffered an internal injury from the battle with the sword sect on the ultimate sword peak all those years ago, and you still haven't recovered, right? Now that things have come to this, if you still have your strength, how could you let us go? Right now, you're just strong on the outside but weak on the inside. Ji Changkong's expression suddenly changed. He was shocked. Only a few people in the mansion know about my injuries. Who leaked the news? However, before he could think about it, Ling Sihai swung his sword and slashed several sword rays at him. The 8 experts also followed closely behind and began to besiege him. Ji Changkong had no choice but to block with his sword and fight with the 9 experts again. Ding ding dang dang. The sound of swords colliding rang out again. The hearts of everyone in the courtyard tightened once again as they stared intently at the scene of the battle. After 10 breaths, 2 true origin realm experts were heavily injured. They screamed miserably as they retreated from the battle. One of them had an arm chopped off by Ji Changkong, while the other had a leg chopped off. With such heavy injuries, he was naturally unable to continue fighting. While the 2 of them screamed and retreated, a cold, killing intent flashed through Ji Tianxing's eyes. He held the blood dragon sword and charged forward. Swish! Swish! He waved his blood dragon sword and slashed out a few sharp sword lights, killing the two experts in the blink of an eye. One of them had his neck cut off by the blood dragon's sword, while the other had his heart pierced. The battle continued. Ji Chongkong was besieged by 7 experts. His complexion grew paler and paler, and his body was drenched in sweat. However, in just a short moment, another true energy realm expert and a level 1 Tongxian realm expert retreated with heavy injuries. There were only 5 experts left attacking Ji Chongkong. One of them was Ling Sihai, while the other 4 were at the 2nd or 3rd stage of the Tongxian realm. Not long after, Ji Chongkong was also stabbed a few times. His clothes were dyed red with blood. The injuries of Ling Sihai and the others were even worse. Each of them had been stabbed several times, and their bodies were stained with blood. Suddenly, Ling Sihai and the other 2 Tongxian realm experts took out a palm-sized paper bag from their sleeve. After the 3 of them crushed the paper bag, they waved their hands and sprinkled a light green powder at Ji Chongkong. Ji Chongkong mistook it for a hidden weapon. He immediately lifted the hem of his robe and danced with a gust of wind, blowing the powder away. However, after the powder was scattered around, it emitted a strong fragrance. Ji Chongkong's expression changed drastically. His pale face turned as red as blood, and his body trembled uncontrollably. Cough, cough. He covered his chest with his left hand and coughed violently. Dark red blood flowed out of his mouth. Ling Sihai and the other 4 Tongxian realm experts took this opportunity to charge forward with their sword. Damn it! It's actually powder. Ling Sihai actually used poison. How despicable! Seeing this scene, Ji Tianqing immediately guessed that the powder was poisonous. Seeing his father stumbling while resisting the attacks of Ling Sihai and the others, and the situation becoming more and more dangerous, he was so angry that his eyes almost popped out. Unfortunately, his strength was too low and he did not have the qualifications to intervene in a fight between Tongxian realm experts. He could only worry helplessly. He suddenly remembered that Ji Rufeng and the other Ji family leaders were still standing under the eaves behind him. He hurriedly shouted to the crowd, "What are you waiting for? Quickly go and help the family head. The Ling family people are already at our door. Do you still want to watch the show?" However, Ji Rufeng, Ji Hao, Ji Rufeng, and the 3 leaders remained unmoved. More than a dozen Ji family disciples were eager to give it a try. They wanted to join the battle, but they all peeked at Ji Rufeng's reaction and restrained their impulses. Ji Tianqing immediately understood that this group of people were second Uncle Ji Rufeng's supporters. He never would have thought that Ji Rufeng would actually dare to brazenly leave him in the lurch at this critical juncture. Suddenly, he noticed a problem and was stunned. No, the powder that Ling Sihai and the others sprinkled was not poisonous. Everyone in the courtyard smelled the strange fragrance of the powder, but only my father was poisoned. We are all fine. Could it be that my father's body was poisoned long ago, and the powder was the catalyst that triggered the poison in my father's body? Ji Tianqing was extremely intelligent, and he had been in love with Ling Yunfei for 3 years. He knew the Ling family's way of elixirs very well. Therefore, after a little analysis, he guessed the cause of his father's poisoning. At this time, Ji Chongkong suddenly shouted and swung his sword to cut off the right arm of a Tongxian realm expert. However, he was also stabbed in the left abdomen by Ling Sihai's sword. He immediately let out a muffled groan and staggered back. At this time, he was covered in cuts and bruises and dripping with blood. He was extremely miserable, and his cultivation power was rapidly dissipating. Ji Tianqing's anger rushed to his head. He swung the blood dragon sword and rushed to the field, shouting angrily, "Guards! All of you, attack!" More than 10 guards hesitated for a moment before swinging their swords and rushed to the courtyard, attacking Ling Sihai and the others from all sides. Although these guards were only at true energy realm level 4 or 5, they were no match for Tongxian realm experts. However, they had the advantage in numbers, and Ling Sihai and the other Tongxian realm experts were all seriously injured. For a moment, the two sides were locked in a fierce battle. Ji Tianxing's eyes were bloodshot with anger. He swung the blood dragon sword crazily and attacked a true energy realm level 9 expert. This person's arm had been cut off by Ji Chongkong, and his chest and back had been stabbed a few times. He was at the end of his rope. Ji Tianxing performed the 10 mysterious swordplay with all his strength, sending out more than 10 sword lights, forcing this person to retreat. In the end, this true energy realm expert retreated to the corner of the courtyard, having nowhere to hide. Ji Tianxing used all his strength to knock his sword away, and in an instant, he stabbed twice, piercing his forehead and throat. However, just as he killed this person, a Tongxian realm expert covered in blood suddenly rushed out from behind him and stabbed at him with his sword. Chapter 55. Ji Tianxing, you're courting death. Ha ha. The Tongxian realm expert, who was covered in blood, unleashed a powerful true yuan. He condensed a 3-foot sword ray on his sword and slashed at Ji Tianxing. Although he was heavily injured and had one of his arms chopped off by Ji Chongkong, he was still a Tongxian realm expert. However, he was a LV1 Tongxian realm expert after all. His true yuan was so powerful that he could shatter stones with a single move. When he slashed out, the crimson sword ray was dazzling and emitted a scorching heat wave. Before the sword ray hit Ji Tianxing, he felt as if he was in a furnace and his hair was about to be burnt. At this critical moment, he recklessly unleashed all his strength and slashed out a dazzling sword ray to block the crimson sword ray. Bang! With a muffled sound, the sword light he slashed out was shattered, and the blood dragon sword was also cut in half with a clang. The sword blade that was broken in two flew out and inserted into the blue brick courtyard wall with a xiao sound. Ji Tianxing was shocked and his eyes were filled with shock. Is this the true strength of a Tongxian realm expert? Although his blood dragon sword was a black class high-grade treasure sword, the Tongxian realm expert's treasure sword was only a black class medium-grade treasure sword. However, the opponent's cultivation was extremely profound and terrifying. That was why he could cut his blood dragon sword in half. This also allowed Ji Tianxing to deeply understand a principle. Divine weapons were only external objects in the end, and they couldn't be relied on. If one wanted to have a powerful battle strength, the most important thing was to be strong enough. With his blood dragon sword cut in half, his hands were empty, and he no longer had the strength to resist. Moreover, he was forced into a corner of the courtyard with a thick wall behind him. There was no way out. The Tongxian realm expert's expression became even more ferocious. He held his sword and walked towards Ji Tianxing with a smug smile. Little bastard, let's see where you can run to now. Obediently accept your death. Ji Tianxing, who had no weapon and was only a true yuan realm expert, was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered in his eyes. Die! With a murderous roar, he swung his sword with bloodshot eyes, fiercely slashing toward Ji Tianxing. The sword aura that was wreathed in scarlet flames erupted with an incomparably violent strength qi that enveloped Ji Tianxing's entire body. At the moment of life and death, Ji Tianxing did not despair. His face was still as calm as water. His eyes were fixed on the red sword light that was slashing towards him, and his heart was filled with an incomparable desire to survive. He couldn't die. Even if he had to die, he couldn't die here. No matter what, he had to survive. The blood in his entire body was boiling, and his chest was burning with a monstrous fighting spirit and fury. He did not hesitate to use his trump card. Although he no longer had his treasured sword, he still had his sword qi. Swish, swish. Ji Tianxing immediately waved his palms and sent out 2 golden sword qi towards the common mysterious expert. Although the golden sword qi was only as long as a finger, it was as fast as lightning and extremely sharp. The 2 sword qi were aimed at the common mysterious expert's forehead and throat, and were about to pierce through his vital parts in an instant. The common mysterious expert's expression immediately changed, and his heart was filled with intense shock and fear. He quickly withdrew his scarlet sword aura to block the attack of the two-sword chi. The scarlet sword aura was very fast, but the two golden sword chi were even faster. They dodged the sword aura's block in an instant. An even more shocking scene appeared. Swish, 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 swish. Under the control of Ji Tianxing's mind, the two golden sword chi actually split into two and became four sword chi. Swish, swish, swish. The four sword chi shot out extremely fast and ruthlessly pierced the common mysterious expert's vital parts. The sword chi was so fast that it actually made a sharp sound of breaking through the air, which made people tremble with fear. The common mysterious expert's expression changed drastically. His eyes were filled with horror, and he hurriedly waved his sword to block. However, he only had one arm, and the way he frantically waved his sword to counterattack looked very comical. The scarlet sword aura and the golden sword chi kept colliding, making crisp ding-ding-ding sounds. However, the four sword chi were like living creatures with intelligence. After being shaken off, they flew back to the common mysterious expert's side and rapidly pierced his vital parts. Moreover, the four sword chi split again and actually became 8 sword chi. Each sword chi was sharp and fierce. When they flew around the common mysterious expert to attack, they even left a long trail of golden light, which looked like golden lines. After the 8 sword chi flew around and attacked a few times, hundreds of golden lines were drawn around the common mysterious expert, as if they were forming a fishing net. The common mysterious expert was completely wrapped by the golden fishing net. He stood still and did not dare to move at all. When his robe came into contact with the golden lines, it was instantly cut into pieces. When he waved his sword to counterattack, his arms and ankles came into contact with the golden lines, and immediately there were deep bloody wounds that exposed his bones. In just a few breaths, the common mysterious expert's long robe was cut into rags and became a pile of rags. His body was also covered with crisscrossing wounds. Blood continuously flowed out and dripped onto the ground. When the 8 sword chi split again and became 16 sword chi, his expression became more and more frightened. His eyes revealed a deep sense of despair. Xiao xiao xiao. The 16 sword chi flew around and formed a huge golden sword net, covering a radius of 10 feet. The common mysterious expert was continuously hit by the sword chi. He was already covered in blood, and there was not a single piece of intact flesh on his body. This kind of pain was like torture. It made him welcome the arrival of death in despair and pain. Finally, the common mysterious expert could not hold on any longer. The scarlet sword aura with his one arm gradually stopped. 16 golden sword chis pierced into his vital parts one after another, piercing into his forehead, eyes, glabella, and chest. Ugh! A painful groan came from the throat of the mystic comprehending expert. His body trembled and swayed a few times before he finally fell to the ground with a thump, dead. The Ji family members in the yard witnessed the common mysterious expert being killed by Ji Tianxing's sword net with their own eyes. They were all stunned on the spot. Everyone's faces were full of shock. They looked at Ji Tianxing in disbelief, and could not help but exclaim, "Heavens! What the hell is that? The sword chi can actually fly and condense into a sword net? What the hell? This old man has lived for more than 50 years, and I have never seen such a strange thing. Not to mention a common mysterious expert, even a Yuan Dan expert might not be able to control the sword chi to attack like this. What the hell? What the hell? How did Ji Tianxing, that fellow, master such a strange secret technique?" The younger generation of the Ji family members were all in awe of Ji Tianxing's sword chi technique. Although Ji Rufeng and the other leaders were experienced and knowledgeable, they had never seen such a strange method of attack. They were inexplicably shocked and their horizons were broadened. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, no one would dare to believe that Ji Tianxing, who was only at the true energy realm, could use such a strange method to kill a common mysterious expert? Brothers, the 5th update has arrived. Please add it to your collection, recommendation tickets, and rewards. My new book needs your support? Chapter 56. The G family members were stunned for a long time, unable to recover from their shock. The nimble 16 streaks of sword energy and the crisscrossing golden sword net were an eye-opener. They would never forget it. Even Ji Rufeng and the other experts had only just discovered that there was such an unfathomable secret sword technique in the world today. But other than shock, Ji Rufeng also felt a strong sense of anger and jealousy. Why was such an unheard of and mysterious sword technique in the hands of Ji Tianxing? What kind of fortuitous encounter did this crippled brat have to have such astonishing means and strength? Ji Rufeng could not understand, and his face darkened. Ji Hao also glared at Ji Tianxing with red eyes. He clenched his fists so tightly that they creaked. He was so jealous that he almost vomited blood. At this moment, Ji Tianxing finally let out a sigh of relief. While everyone was still in a daze, he quickly withdrew the 16 streaks of sword energy into his body. Ever since he formed the sword embryo and reached the true energy realm, this was the first time he had used his trump card and fought with all his strength. Sword energy splitting and sword energy forming a sword net were special effects of the path of the sword heart. It was definitely a unique sword technique. His first time using the secret technique and killing a mystic understanding expert on the spot, his mood was surging. Although the mystic understanding expert had lost an arm and was seriously injured, leaving him with only 40% of his strength, Ji Tianxing was still able to kill a mystic understanding expert. However, he was able to kill that profound understanding expert with his true energy realm strength. This proved that the secret technique of the sword heart was indeed terrifying and extraordinary. However, the bloody battle in the courtyard was not over yet. Ji Tianxing could not let his guard down. He turned to look at the people in the courtyard and immediately saw the situation clearly. 8 of the dozen or so brave Ji family guards had already fallen. Other than 2 who were seriously injured and unconscious, the other 6 guards were lying in pools of blood and had become corpses. The 6 guards who were lucky enough to survive were also seriously injured. They were still fighting with their lives on the line against Ling Sihai and the others. Ling Sihai's side originally had 5 people, but now only 3 were left. One of the experts who had lost an arm had been killed by Ji Tianxing. The other was a seriously injured mystic understanding expert, who had also died under the siege of the Ji family guards. Now, only Ling Sihai and 2 other Tongxian realm experts were left. They were still fighting a bloody battle. In the blink of an eye, 2 more Ji family guards were stabbed by Ling Sihai and fell to the ground, twitching in a pool of blood. It seemed that they would not survive. Ji Tianxing gritted his teeth and rushed towards Ling Sihai and the others with a murderous aura. But at this moment, Ji Changkong's figure flashed and rushed into the courtyard. He waved his sword and slashed out a dozen dazzling sword rays. Shwa! 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 Instantly, the 2 mystic comprehending experts were forced to jump back, and a few more wounds appeared on their bodies. Ling Sihai was also cut in the waist by a sword, adding another chopstick-length sword wound. The wound was bleeding profusely. He let out a heart-wrenching cry of pain as he held his waist and retreated to the door, glaring at Ji Changkong with bloodshot eyes. Ji Changkong, my Ling family will remember this grudge. In the future, we will return it tenfold. Let's go. After shouting angrily, Ling Sihai turned around without hesitation and led the 2 experts out of the Ji family's door, running away. Although he knew that Ji Changkong was poisoned and his cultivation was on the verge of collapse, his life was in danger. But Ji Changkong was still a 6th-stage Tongxian realm expert, and he was very afraid of him. Moreover, he was seriously injured. 6 of the 8 experts he brought were dead, and the remaining 2 experts were at the end of their rope. Under such circumstances, He could only run for his life. If he was entangled for a moment longer, the experts of the Ji family's Shadow Sword Hall would arrive, and he would undoubtedly die. When the Ji family saw Ling Sihai run away, no one chased after him. Ji Chongkong was also in an extremely miserable state. His entire body was drenched in blood, and his body was on the verge of collapsing, as if he would collapse at any moment. Ji Tianxing hurriedly rushed over to support him. He asked worriedly, "Father, how are you? I will take you to treat your injuries first." Ji Chongkong had been suppressing his injuries. Now that Ling Sihai and the others had escaped, the crisis was temporarily resolved. He could no longer hold on. His left hand, which was covered in blood, trembled as he reached for his waist. He pulled out a dark brown token and stuffed it into Ji Tianxing's hand. "From now on, Ji Tianxing will hold the Patriarch's token in my place and assume the position of Patriarch. Everyone in the Ji family must obey this order. Otherwise, they will be punished according to the family rules." Ji Chongkong shouted himself hoarse. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of dark red blood, fainting. Everyone in the courtyard was stunned. No one would have thought that Ji Chongkong would hand the Patriarch's token to Ji Tianxing at this time. He actually let Ji Tianxing act as the temporary Patriarch and exercise the authority of the Patriarch. Many of the Ji family's disciples were stunned and had yet to recover from their shock. The expressions of Ji Rufeng and the other leaders changed. Their eyes became cold and grave, especially Ji Rufeng. He was originally full of confidence and thought that today's plan was flawless. He thought that Ji Chongkong and Ji Tianxing would die without a doubt. However, the result was out of his expectations. Ling Sihai and the others suffered heavy casualties and fled the Ji mansion in a sorry state. His plan, which he was determined to succeed, failed just like that. At this moment, Ji Chongkong had handed the Patriarch's token to Ji Tianxing. This made him even more furious and murderous. After all, he had coveted the Patriarch's position for many years. However, he quickly realized a problem and a cold smile flashed in his eyes. Ji Chongkong actually handed over the Patriarch's token. Didn't this mean that Ji Chongkong's days were numbered and he was about to die? Thinking of this, his anger dissipated by more than half. He secretly clenched his fists and remained silent. At this moment, Ji Tianxing was only worried about his father's injuries. It was as if a raging fire had ignited in his chest. He was extremely anxious. He didn't think too much and quickly put away the Patriarch's token. He carried his severely injured and unconscious father back to the third courtyard. After he carried his father back to his room, he quickly called for the physician in the mansion to treat his father's injuries. At this time, the news that Patriarch Ji Chongkong was severely injured by the Ling family had spread throughout the Ji mansion. The entire Ji family was in a panic. Their hearts were in turmoil as they discussed anxiously. In broad daylight, Ling Sihai led his men into the Ji mansion. This matter was witnessed by many people and the news immediately spread throughout the imperial city. Such a shocking matter caused the citizens of the imperial city to discuss animatedly. Rumors and slanders were everywhere. 3,000 meters away from the Ji mansion, there was a celestial forest court. This luxurious manor was nearly 100 mu in size. It was a side courtyard under the name of the imperial family. The environment was elegant. The side courtyard was usually unoccupied. It was only opened when the imperial family's distinguished guests arrived. Those who were qualified to live here were all people of high status and high status. There was a 20-foot tall pagoda in the side courtyard. At this moment, there were 3 young men and women standing on top of the pagoda. The woman standing in the middle was wearing a long white dress. She was as beautiful as a fairy. She was Yun Yao. The 2 young men standing beside her were naturally Hao Meng and Bai Wuchen. The 3 of them stood proudly on top of the pagoda, facing the strong wind in the sky. They looked down at the Ji mansion from 1,000 feet away. They had seen the bloody battle that had just taken place in the G Mansion's courtyard, and they had seen it clearly. However, the three of them only watched quietly from the beginning. Brothers, I will continue to update 5 times today. Please join my bookshelf. Please vote for me and give me tips. My new book depends on everyone's support. Chapter 57. Now, the Ling family had escaped. The Ji family's guards were cleaning up the battlefield. Ji Tianxing was also busy treating his father's injuries, and did not appear again. The bloody battle had ended. Bai Wuchen retracted his indifferent gaze and glanced at Yun Yao beside him. Seeing that she was still staring at the Ji Mansion's courtyard with a pensive expression, he probed, "Eldest senior sister, just now, that brat was in a life-and-death crisis and almost lost his life. Why didn't you save him?" Hao Meng had the same question and nodded. That's right. If eldest senior sister had helped, those people from the Ling family would have died. Yun Yao collected her thoughts and said calmly, "This is a personal grudge between the Ji family and the Ling family. Why should I save him?" Hao Meng grinned and did not say anything. Bai Wuchen nodded slightly and the inexplicable jealousy in his heart dissipated. Ever since he came to the imperial city, he had always felt that Yun Yao was a little strange. She seemed to be very concerned about that brat with the surname Ji and had even saved him several times. He had always admired Yun Yao in the depths of his heart and dreamed of winning her favor. However, Yun Yao turned a blind eye to his feelings and her attitude was neither warm nor cold. He did not dare to express his feelings at all. He always felt that as one of the top 10 prodigies in the Sky Pillar sect, he was not even as good as a nobody who could receive Yun Yao's favor. Now that he heard Yun Yao's explanation, the jealousy in his heart disappeared. At this moment, Yun Yao asked, "Junior Marshal Brothers, how's the investigation of the person the sect mission asked us to look for? Do you have any leads?" Bai Wuchen smiled and quickly answered, "Eldest senior sister, we have some leads on this matter. After careful investigation, we found a person who fits the description of the person the sect is looking for." "Who?" Yun Yao raised her eyebrows. Bai Wuchen smiled and said, "Young Prince Ji Ling." "Him?" Yun Yao showed a trace of confusion. "Why him?" Hao Meng hurriedly explained, "Eldest senior sister, the sect's mission requires us to find a person whose fate has undergone a drastic change recently, and this person must be a martial arts genius. Little Prince, Ji Ling was originally a trash with a damaged dantian and could only remain in the body refinement realm for the rest of his life. However, a few days ago, he obtained the scarlet star flower. After consuming it, he went into closed-door cultivation for 2 days and repaired his damaged dantian, reaching the true energy stage. I've investigated his strength. He's actually at the 7th level of the true energy realm. In such a short period of time, he had undergone such a huge change. Isn't this the reversal of one's fate, a shocking change? Therefore, senior brother Bai and I both feel that he is the person our sect is looking for." After hearing Hao Meng's words, Yun Yao immediately frowned, and a strange look flashed in her eyes. She looked at Hao Meng with a burning gaze and asked, "How did you know that he had recovered his dantian and reached the true energy realm after obtaining the scarlet meteorite flower?" Bai Wuchen smiled and explained, "Eldest senior sister, you've always been engrossed in martial arts and don't pay attention to the outside world. Of course, you don't know about this. But this news came from the Spirit Fire Palace. Now, everyone in the Imperial City knows about it." Hao Meng continued, "Eldest senior sister, in my opinion, with little Prince Ji Ling's strength, he will definitely be able to defeat everyone in the sect's entrance competition in 10 days and become the champion. After the competition ends, we'll bring him back to the sect and successfully complete the mission." After saying that, he and Bai Wuchen looked at each other and smiled, as if they were proud of their ability. However, Yun Yao did not have a trace of joy on her face. She muttered with a strange expression, "That's impossible. How did little Prince obtain the scarlet meteorite flower?" Bai Wuchen smiled and said, "Eldest senior sister, how is that impossible? You only obtained the stamen of the scarlet meteorite flower. It's very likely that little prince obtained the petals. Although he only obtained the petals, it's enough for him to repair his damaged dantian." Yun Yao was silent. She looked in the direction of the Ji mansion's courtyard and thought to herself, "There's only one scarlet meteorite flower, and it was clearly obtained by him and me." Little Prince Ji Ling claimed that he obtained the scarlet meteorite flower and used it to repair his dantian and reach the true energy realm. There's definitely something wrong with this King Luo Yen. I don't know why he purposely spread this news. Could it be that there's more to this matter? At this moment, Bai Wuchen and Hao Meng saw that she was silent and seemed to be thinking about something. They asked in unison, "Eldest senior sister, what's wrong?" Yun Yao shook her head with a normal expression. "Nothing. You two can leave first. I want to be alone." Bai Wuchen and Hao Meng were stunned. They cupped their hands at Yun Yao and turned to leave the pagoda. The third courtyard of the Ji mansion. This was the residence of the Ji family's patriarch, Ji Chongkong. There were guards both inside and outside the courtyard. The security was tight. The guards all had solemn expressions and were emitting a murderous aura. The Ji family members who came to visit the family head were all stopped by the guards at the door. They could only see the maids and servants carrying wooden basins and towels hurriedly entering and leaving the small courtyard. All the towels and basins that came out of the room were dyed a dark red with blood. It was a ghastly sight. The Ji family members couldn't see Ji Chongkong. They could only guess the condition of Ji Chongkong's injuries based on the blood-stained towels and hot water. They discussed in private with worry. At this moment, there were only 3 people in Ji Chongkong's bedroom. The unconscious Ji Tianxing was sitting at the head of the bed with a solemn expression. The white-bearded old medicine master was standing at the side. Although Ji Chongkong's blood-soaked robe had been changed, the room was still filled with the smell of blood. The old medicine master saw that Ji Tianxing's face was filled with anxiety and was silent. He comforted him. "Eldest young master, don't be too anxious. This old man has just treated master's injuries and used a pill to temporarily suppress the poison in his body. Now, master's life is no longer in danger. Next, you will need to let the servants take care of master every day. Also, follow this old man's prescription and give master the medicine on time. This way, master can rest for several months." "Rest for several months?" Ji Tianxing immediately frowned. His expression became even more solemn. The Ji family was currently facing internal and external troubles. They were already in a precarious situation. If this was delayed for several months, an unforeseen event would have already occurred. He asked in a low voice, "Elder Qi, when will my father wake up?" The old medicine master was silent. He hesitated for a moment before explaining, "Eldest young master, this old man can't say for sure. Perhaps he will wake up tonight or in a few days or half a month." The poison in master's body was produced by mixing 2 kinds of medicinal powders. It should be the Ling family's secret poison, the energy-destroying powder. Apart from the Ling family's antidote, it can only be slowly dispelled with profound cultivation. Unfortunately, master is heavily injured and his cultivation has declined to the extreme. It will be very difficult for him to dispel the energy-destroying powder. Moreover, even if master dispels the poison in a few months, I'm afraid that his martial arts foundation will be damaged and his strength will fall greatly. After listening to Dr. Qi's explanation, Ji Tianxing's mood became even heavier. The killing intent in his eyes became even colder. Damn Ling family! And the Ji family's traitor! One day, I, Ji Tianxing, will make you pay with your blood and die without a burial place. Chapter 58. Ji Tianxing had been guarding his father's room from noon to the next morning, and he hadn't left. When the first ray of sunlight shone through the window and into the room, Ji Chongkong finally woke up. Ji Tianxing immediately let out a sigh of relief and said with concern, Father, you're finally awake. How do you feel? Ji Chongkong weakly opened his eyes and looked around with hazy eyes before his gaze landed on Ji Tianxing. Tianxing, don't worry, Father can still hold on. These injuries and setbacks are far inferior to the battle 10 years ago. How can it be a problem for me? Ji Tianxing silently nodded, but his heart was a little sour. His once high-spirited, majestic, and domineering father was now pale and weak as he lay on the bed. Yet, he still had to endure his injuries and comfort him. Ji Chongkong tilted his head to look at him and asked in a weak voice, Tianxing, Father might have to go into seclusion to heal for a few months. Even if I recover in the future, I'm afraid that my strength will fall greatly. Although Father has been waiting for you to grow up and pass on the position of patriarch to you, Father can't wait any longer. But I can't wait any longer, so I can only give you this important task in advance. Father knows that the Ji family is in a difficult situation right now. This burden is too heavy. However, Father believes that you will definitely overcome this crisis and protect the Ji family's 100 years of foundation. Ji Tianxing naturally knew the Ji family's predicament and also felt the heavy pressure. However, at this point, he could only grit his teeth and bear this heavy responsibility. Father, don't worry. No matter how difficult it is, I will endure it and won't let you down. In a moment, I will arrange for you to enter a secret room. You can focus on healing your injuries. Ji Chongkong nodded slightly and squeezed out a smile on his pale face. Tianxing, the Shadow Sword Hall only listens to the Patriarch's orders. You can trust them. Apart from that, you have to be careful of the others. With the Ji family's internal strife, many people might become disloyal. No matter what, you have to remember that your own safety is the most important thing. Only by surviving will there be hope. Father, I will remember. Ji Tianxing nodded solemnly. Then, he arranged for 2 guards who were absolutely loyal to his father to send his father to the secret underground room so that his father could recuperate peacefully. Ji Tianxing had just finished dealing with this matter when a guard outside the door respectfully reported, Eldest young master, second elder, has summoned you to the main hall to discuss important matters with the elders and deacons. Hearing this news, Ji Tianxing's expression suddenly changed, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Second uncle is so anxious to gather everyone for a meeting. It must be because of the family head command tablet. Could it be that he is already impatient? He coldly snorted in his heart. He straightened his clothes and left his father's residence, rushing to the main hall of the Ji mansion. When he arrived at the Ji mansion's main hall, he saw a group of Ji clan's disciples gathered at the entrance, whispering to each other. Seeing that Ji Tianxing had arrived, the group of Ji clan disciples quickly shut their mouths and pretended to look around. Ji Tianxing ignored the youths of the same generation and calmly stepped into the main hall. There were already 12 people sitting in the main hall. Apart from 2 old men, the other 10 were middle-aged men with dignified auras. Ji Tianxing was no stranger to these 12 people. 3 of them were Ji Tianxing's eldest uncle, second uncle, and third uncle. The other 9 were the Ji clan's managers, each in charge of a province's workshop business. They could be said to be the Ji clan's 9 pillars. Sitting at the head of the table on the left was a stout middle-aged man with a fat head and big ears. His name was Ji Dajiang, Ji Chongkong's eldest brother and Ji Tianxing's eldest uncle. However, Ji Dajiang was the most cowardly and incompetent among the 4 brothers of the Ji clan. He had no business acumen or talent for forging. He was best at eating, drinking, whoring, gambling, and enjoying life. In the past, his father treated this eldest uncle well and gave him enough money every month to support him. Therefore, he did not participate in the Ji clan's internal strife and maintained a neutral attitude. Sitting next to Ji Dajiang was second uncle Ji Rufeng. He wore a purple robe and had a dignified aura. His eyes contained an ominous glint. As for the third seat on the left, there was a skinny middle-aged man with a dark face. He was Ji Tianxing's third uncle. Third uncle was called Ji Changhe. He was a man who took advantage of the situation and was adept at currying favor. Although Ji Changhe was not as ambitious as second uncle Ji Rufeng, he was still a restless fellow. He had secretly engaged in many petty schemes and was in cahoots with Ji Rufeng. In recent years, he had frequently disobeyed his father's orders. The four brothers of the Ji clan had different talents and dispositions, but in terms of martial arts and business talent, the fourth brother, Ji Changkong, was undoubtedly more outstanding. Therefore, Ji Changkong succeeded to the position of clan head 15 years ago. Apart from the three elders, Ji Tianxing did not have a deep understanding of the 9 managers. He only knew that among the 9 managers, 5 of them were from the Ji clan's branch families and 4 were outsiders. The 5 collateral descendants of the Ji family seemed to be closer to Ji Rufeng. On the other hand, the 4 outsiders had always been loyal to Ji Changkong. At this moment, everyone turned to look at Ji Tianxing when they saw him walk into the hall. Ji Rufeng, Ji Changhe, and the manager's eyes were clearly scrutinizing and harboring ill intentions. Ji Tianxing expressionlessly walked through the hall and headed straight for the clan head's seat. Now that he held the clan head medallion and temporarily replaced his father as clan head, it was only right for him to sit in that seat. However, just as he walked to the clan head seat and was about to sit down, Ji Changhe suddenly spoke. Tianxing, everyone present is your elder. It's fine if you don't pay your respects, but you actually want to sit in the main seat. It's not that third uncle is lecturing you, but aren't you a bit too arrogant? Ji Changhe looked at Ji Tianxing with a smile, as if he was a senior lecturing a junior. Ji Tianxing frowned and said expressionlessly, "Father handed the clan head medallion to me. Now that I'm the clan head, what's wrong with sitting in the main seat?" As soon as he finished speaking, Ji Rufeng sneered and retorted, "The Ji clan does not belong to Ji Changkong alone. He privately handed the clan head medallion to you. Did he get the approval of the elders and managers? Moreover, our Ji clan's power is monstrous. Our businesses are spread across half of the imperial Qing dynasty. For such a large clan, only a strong person with both ability and integrity is qualified to be the clan head. You're just a young boy in his teens. How can we let you control the Ji clan? Isn't this child's play? If something goes wrong and affects the Ji clan's foundation and safety, can you bear the responsibility?" Ji Rufeng did not try to hide anything. It was obvious that he did not recognize Ji Tianxing as the acting clan head. Ji Tianxing's heart was filled with hatred. With a cold expression, he asked Ji Rufeng, "Second uncle, what do you mean? Don't tell me you want to seize the clan head medallion and control the Ji clan's power?" Ji Rufeng glanced at him and said with a smile, "I've discussed with the elders and managers. We all feel that you are not qualified to be the clan head. So, you have to hand over the clan head medallion today. I will temporarily keep it for you." Chapter 59. You're keeping it for me? Ji Tianxing furrowed his brows as rage and hatred surged in his heart. Second uncle's reason is really dignified. Doesn't he want to seize the opportunity to seize power and become the patriarch? Second uncle used to be secretive. I didn't expect him to be so brazen after father went into seclusion to heal. His ambitions are as clear as day. He stared coldly at Ji Rufeng and asked in a low voice, "Whether I have the right to be the patriarch is not up to you. This is only your side of the story. Besides, what right do you have to keep the patriarch token?" Ji Rufeng's face turned ashen, and his eyes burned with anger. Ji Changhe hurriedly added, "Ji Tianxing, don't be so presumptuous. Before you came, we already discussed this matter with the other managers. This is everyone's common opinion and decision." As soon as he finished speaking, the other managers hurriedly refuted. "Third elder, what do you mean? I didn't agree with your point of view." "That's right. We did discuss this matter before, but we don't agree with second elder's way of doing things. We clearly disagreed. How did it become our common opinion and decision in Third Elder's mouth? Is Third Elder going to ignore us old fellows? Ji Tianxing felt a little comforted when he saw the managers helping him out of his predicament. His expression eased a lot. Second Uncle Ji Rufeng secretly clenched his fist. He glanced at the managers and continued, since there are people who disagree, this matter will be handled according to the Ji family's rules. He turned to Ji Tianxing and said in a low voice, according to the Ji family's rules, the successor to the position of patriarch must enter the family's forbidden area and undergo a test. Ji Tianxing, you want to be the patriarch, don't you? Then you must enter the family's forbidden area and obtain the azure crystal. Only then will you have the right to succeed as patriarch. After hearing Ji Rufeng's words, Third Elder Ji Changhe and the other Ji managers all revealed playful smiles. The four managers' expressions changed abruptly, and they hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Tianxing, don't listen to the second elder. You can't enter the clan's forbidden area now. The clan's forbidden grounds are filled with unfathomable dangers. With your strength, you must not enter. Otherwise, it's extremely likely that you'll lose your life. Second elder, you know that Tianxing is young and only at the true element realm, yet you still forced him to enter the Ji clan's forbidden area. What are your intentions? Second elder, we strongly disagree with your opinion. Ji Tianxing had also heard about the family's forbidden area from his father, so he had heard about the dangers within. According to his father, there was an extremely ferocious demonic beast residing in the family's forbidden area. If one did not have the strength of a Tongxian realm cultivator, entering the Ji clan's forbidden grounds would only result in death. When Ji Rufeng saw Ji Tianxing's gloomy expression, he immediately revealed a complacent sneer. Ji Tianxing, these are the rules of the Ji family. You must obey them. Now you only have two choices. Either enter the clan's forbidden area and accept the test, or obediently hand over the family head token and let me keep it for you. As your second uncle, I must remind you that when your father entered the clan's forbidden area in order to obtain the azure crystal, he escaped covered in cuts and bruises and almost lost his life. With your current strength, entering the forbidden area is certain death. Therefore, I suggest that you hand over the family head token. Don't worry, I'm only temporarily keeping it for you. When your father recovers from his injuries, I'll naturally return it to him. Ha 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 ha. The four elders immediately stood up in agitation and angrily rebuked Ji Rufeng. Second elder, you're truly a wolf with wild ambitions. Humph, you want to seize the family head's position while he's injured and in seclusion? Do you think that we don't know your scheme? No matter what, we won't let Tianxing enter the forbidden area. Ji Rufeng's eyes surged with a cold light as he glared at the four of them. He sternly shouted, "This is our Ji family's internal affairs. Who are you to tell us what to do?" The four elders were immediately embarrassed. They were so angry that their faces turned ashen as they powerlessly sat down. Humph! Ji Rufeng coldly snorted before withdrawing his gaze and looking gloomily at Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing, don't waste time. Quickly make your choice. Enter the clan's forbidden area or hand over the family head token. Ji Tianxing secretly clenched his fists as his heart surged with rage. Second Uncle Ji Rufeng's unbridled and overbearing manner caused a trace of murderous intent to quietly emerge in his heart. He could see that Ji Rufeng had secretly coveted the family head position for many years. He could no longer wait and wanted to seize power now. Yet, Ji Rufeng had openly brought up the Ji family's rules, leaving him and the four elders with no way to refute. If he didn't dare to accept the test, he would have to hand over the family head token. This was exactly what Ji Rufeng wanted. If he entered the clan's forbidden area, it was very likely that he would die there. This was also the outcome that Ji Rufeng wished for. In short, no matter what choice he made, Ji Rufeng's scheme would succeed. Ji Tianxing's expression was cold as he remained silent, caught between a rock and a hard place. The four elders were also full of worry as they secretly discussed how to deal with this situation. Unfortunately, they couldn't come up with a solution after a long discussion. Ji Rufeng, Ji Changhe, and the others all sneered like old foxes as they silently looked at Ji Tianqing. A moment later, Ji Tianqing suddenly raised his head to look at Ji Rufeng and shouted in a low voice, "You want to force me to hand over the family head token to you? Impossible! I'd rather enter the clan's forbidden area and seize the azure crystal." As soon as he finished speaking, the four elders were stunned and anxiously tried to dissuade him. Ji Rufeng, Ji Changhe, and the others were startled, then sneered mockingly. Afraid that Ji Tianqing would go back on his word, Ji Rufeng hurriedly announced, "All right. Ji Tianqing, since you've already made your decision, then prepare to enter the clan's forbidden area. Today's matter, all the elders and managers are present. Everyone must bear witness to this matter." Ji Changhe and a few other managers with the surname Ji nodded in agreement, and even teased Ji Tianqing in a strange manner. "Haha, what guts! I'd like to see if you'll still have the guts after entering the clan's forbidden area. Aya, he's going to die in the clan's forbidden area at such a young age. What an untimely death. Young people are impulsive and don't think before doing things. How pitiful. Old Fourth is now in seclusion to heal. If he comes out and finds out that his precious son is dead, I wonder how sad he'll be." Ji Tianqing's expression was cold as he remained silent. His gaze swept over Ji Changhe and the other elders, committing their ugly faces to memory. "Laugh, laugh to your heart's content. It won't be long before I make you kneel on the ground and repent for your actions today." Chapter 60. The Ji clan's forbidden area was located in the depths of the Ji mansion's back garden. Ever since Ji Tianqing could remember, he had been strictly warned not to go near that area. Not only that, but apart from the master of the Ji mansion, anyone who went near the forbidden area would be severely punished. Such strict rules made the area called Yanqinghu a taboo for everyone in the Ji mansion. It was very dangerous and mysterious. Apart from the master of the Ji mansion who could enter the forbidden area, no one in the Ji mansion could enter. No one knew what kind of secrets were hidden in that forbidden area. Ji Tianqing had already made his decision. No matter how dangerous the forbidden area of Yanqinghu was, he had to give it a try. After making some preparations, he left the Ji mansion's main hall and went to the back garden. Ji Rufeng also led the elders and managers to follow Ji Tianqing to the back garden. In the large back garden, there were artificial mountains, pavilions, lotus ponds, and bamboo forests. A cool breeze blew through the garden. Flowers, grass, and leaves filled the eyes. The scenery was very pleasant. Ji Rufeng and the others sat in the pavilion and had the maids bring them tea and fruits. They chatted with smiles on their faces. Ji Tianqing walked alone into the depths of the garden. After passing through a dense bamboo forest, he arrived at an old high wall. This high wall was built with dark green stones. The wall was full of cracks and green moss grew on it. It looked very dilapidated. 10 meters in front of him, there was a 5-meter-tall bronze gate in the high wall. The bronze door was tightly shut. Green rust had already grown on it, making it look very mottled. The tall wall was surrounded by weeds that were half a man's height. It looked very desolate. Ji Tianqing had never been here before. He didn't know that the Ji mansion had such a desolate and dilapidated place. Moreover, the dilapidated stone wall and the rusty bronze door were filled with an ancient and mysterious aura. He stood in front of the bronze door and looked around with keen eyes. He saw a black stone tablet that was more than 10 meters tall in the grass not far away. There were 3 dark red words on the stone tablet. Yanqinghu. Ji Tianqing stared at the black stone tablet and murmured in a low voice, "This is the forbidden area of the Ji clan's Yanqing Lake. I wonder what kind of dangers are hidden behind that bronze gate?" With a heart full of doubts, he walked to the front of the bronze door, reached out his hands to grab the rusty bronze door knocker, and pushed the bronze door with force. However, the bronze door did not move at all. Instead, it lit up with a layer of pale yellow light. It was a light curtain as thick as a palm, but it was as solid and thick as a city wall, firmly protecting the bronze gate. He immediately had a bad premonition and subconsciously wanted to loosen his grip, but it was too late. Boom! With a muffled sound, the pale yellow light screen exploded with a powerful force, sending him flying backward and tumbling into the grass 10 meters away. Ji Tianqing was dizzy from the fall, and his arms were numb and sore. He temporarily lost consciousness. He shook his dizzy head and crawled up from the grass. With a serious expression, he said, "There's actually a formation protecting it. No wonder no one is allowed to get close to this place. Only the family head can enter. If that's the case, then the family head must have a way to open the bronze gate." Thinking of this, he quickly took out the family head token hanging on his waist, and his sharp eyes searched the bronze gate. He immediately found a clue. There was a diamond-shaped groove next to the bronze door knocker. It was only half the size of a palm, and its shape was exactly the same as the family head token. Therefore, Ji Tianqing put the family head token into the groove. Sure enough, the bronze gate reacted. It slowly opened to both sides, making a muffled sound. The layer of pale yellow light curtain protecting the bronze gate also disappeared immediately. The bronze gate was completely open, and a black stone path covered with moss and weeds appeared behind the gate. Ji Tianqing stepped over the bronze gate and walked along the black stone path into the forbidden area of Yanqing Lake. On both sides of the path, there were trees full of weeds and thorns. Many green vines extended out and spread on the black stone path. Ji Tianqing walked along the black stone path for more than 100 meters. Before he reached the end of the path, he felt a cold and gloomy air blowing against his face. He looked ahead and saw a small inner lake. Judging from the mottled blue stones and countless towering trees beside the lake, this inner lake had been built for at least 100 years. There was no doubt that this was Yanqing Lake. But what surprised him was that the lake water in Yanqing Lake had frozen, and it was glowing with a pale blue light. It was noon in April, and the sun was shining brightly in the sky. But the ice on the lake was extremely thick, and it was constantly emitting cold air. Ji Tianqing's breath would cause white mist to come out. He stood beside Yanqing Lake and looked at the lake with a puzzled face. He was secretly guessing in his heart. At this moment, under the ice in the center of the lake, a huge black shadow suddenly appeared and quickly floated up from the bottom of the lake. Bang! The huge black shadow instantly broke through the thick layer of ice on the lake and appeared above the lake. Countless broken ice pieces burst out in all directions, like streaks of icy blue sword light. The entire ice surface of Yanqing Lake also cracked, and dense cracks spread out in all directions. Ji Tianqing subconsciously stepped back and dodged the countless ice pieces. When he looked up and saw the huge black shadow in the center of the lake, his pupils suddenly shrank, and he revealed a look of disbelief. That huge black shadow was a gigantic demonic beast. Its appearance was like a giant python, but it also looked like a legendary dragon. Its body that extended out of the lake and stood in midair was at least 10 meters tall. Its body was as thick as a water tank, and its surface was covered with dark scales, which were emitting a metallic luster under the sun. There was a sharp horn on its huge head, and 2 rows of black dragon whiskers on both sides of its wide and flat mouth. Under its belly that was covered with black dragon scales, there were 2 pairs of sharp dragon claws that were shining with cold light. It looked down at Ji Tianqing from above, and its dark golden eyes revealed a gloomy and cold aura. Ji Tianqing stared at it with his eyes wide open. He was shocked and excited, and his body was slightly trembling. His heart was surging, and his heart was beating faster. He thought to himself, "That's not a normal demonic beast, and not a giant python, that's a dragon. It's the legendary flood dragon." Although the flood dragon only existed in legends, and he had never seen it with his own eyes, he had only seen a few descriptions and records in the history book. but the black and cold giant in front of him was incomparably handsome, and its aura was powerful and intimidating. It was definitely not an ordinary demonic beast. Therefore, Ji Tianxing dared to conclude that it was the legendary flood dragon. However, he quickly calmed down, and his heart was filled with doubts. The legendary flood dragon is a powerful divine beast that can fly in the sky and travel through the earth. It almost never appears in the mortal world. Our Ji family is just a small family in the small imperial Qing dynasty. How could there be a flood dragon in the family's forbidden area? The 5th chapter has been delivered. Please add it to the bookshelf and give me a few recommendation tickets. Chapter 61. Ji Tianxing was shocked by the appearance of the flood dragon. He found it inconceivable. However, in his heart, he was even more puzzled. While he was frowning, the black flood dragon silently approached him and stood on the surface of the lake 20 meters away from him. The flood dragon stared at him with its cold, dark, golden eyes. It moved its mouth and spoke in a deep voice. "Damn the Ji family!" The flood dragon's voice sounded a little strange, and its tone was a little awkward, but it could still be heard clearly. A hint of surprise flashed across Ji Tianxing's eyes. It's actually another demonic beast that can talk? In his impression, no matter if it was a mid-level or high-level demon beast, it was impossible for them to speak. A demon beast that could speak must be at the level of a demon king. However, although the flood dragon in front of him had a powerful aura, it did not seem like a legendary demon king. Moreover, Ji Tianxing found it difficult to connect the Ji family with a demon king. The legendary demon king had the power to destroy the heavens and the earth. He could easily destroy a country. How could the Ji family control such a ferocious expert? Ji Tianxing looked up at the black flood dragon and asked tentatively, "Flood dragon, aren't you the guardian demon beast of the Ji family's forbidden area? Why do you hate the Ji family so much?" The flood dragon's eyes were filled with hatred. It sneered, "Guardian of the Ji family? Ha 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 ha! I can't wait to kill everyone in the Ji family. Boy, you are also preparing to inherit the position of family head and come to Yanqinghu Lake to seize the blue crystal, right? With your weak strength, this flood dragon can tear you to pieces with one claw." As soon as it finished speaking, it stretched out its dragon claw at lightning speed and grabbed at Ji Tianxing. The biting cold air suddenly hit his face and almost froze his body. His blood was about to solidify. His expression changed, and he immediately jumped back 8 meters away from the lake. Bang! The flood dragon's black claw missed and slammed into the ice lake's shore, creating a 5-meter-wide crater on the ground and shaking the earth. Several large green millstone stones were also smashed into pieces by the flood dragon's giant claws, turning into countless pieces that shot out in all directions. Seeing this scene, Ji Tianxing's pupils constricted, and a chill ran down his spine. His heart was filled with horror. The flood dragon was so powerful that it was hard for him to muster up any fighting spirit. His combat strength was not on the same level as the flood dragon at all. "Damned bastard, don't even think about escaping!" The flood dragon roared angrily. Its body suddenly jumped out of the lake and pounced on Ji Tianxing. However, as soon as its 30-meter-long body flew into the air and its tail was exposed above the surface of the lake, its body stopped abruptly. Only then did Ji Tianxing see clearly that there was a black iron chain as thick as a bucket tied to the dragon's tail. One end of the chain was tied to the flood dragon's tail, while the other end was connected to the bottom of the lake, making it impossible for the flood dragon to leave the ice lake. At the same time, a dark yellow barrier suddenly appeared in the sky. The huge dark yellow barrier was like a canopy covering the sky. It was like a huge bowl that was turned upside down, covering the entire Yanqing Lake. The flood dragon's huge head and body slammed into the dark yellow barrier, and a loud bang was heard. The dark yellow barrier flickered with brilliance and burst out with boundless power. The flood dragon's body trembled violently and rolled into the ice lake. Splash! In the loud bang, the ice lake was smashed into a huge wave a few meters high, and tens of thousands of ice shards burst out. Ji Tianqing, who was hiding 10 meters away from the lakeside, was also drenched by the ice-cold lake water. He was also hit by countless ice shards, causing severe pain all over his body. He looked up at the dark yellow barrier in the sky with a face full of shock. He could not help but exclaim, "It's a barrier array! I didn't expect that the ancestor would set up such a huge barrier that covered the entire Yanqing Lake. No wonder the flood dragon was imprisoned here and could not escape after 100 years. The forbidden area of Yanqing Lake was created after the Ji family's ancestor built the Ji mansion. The barrier array was naturally set up by the Ji family's ancestor. It was only with this massive formation that they were able to imprison the serpent dragon and protect the secret of the forbidden grounds. The barrier array covered everything in Yanqing Lake. Even if someone looked down from the sky near the Ji mansion, they would not be able to see the forbidden area of Yanqing Lake, let alone discover the existence of the flood dragon. Ji Tianqing's heart was full of shock. He thought to himself, "I didn't expect the ancestor of our Ji family to have such a powerful method. No wonder my Ji family could become one of the 4 great families of the royal Azure dynasty and still prosper for more than 100 years. I just don't know where the Ji family's ancestor, who established such a foundation, is now?" At this time, the flood dragon was rolling in the ice lake for a while, rolling up layers of huge wave. It gradually calmed down after a long time. Once again, the flood dragon emerged from the lake. Its 10-meter-tall upper body stood above the lake and glared at Ji Tianqing from above. "Coward as timid as a mouse. Didn't you want to succeed the family head? Didn't you want to take this dragon's blue crystal? Come on. Don't retreat and hide. Come and fight with this dragon." The flood dragon roared with a murderous aura, its eyes flashing with murderous intent. If it was before, Ji Tianqing would not be able to fight the flood dragon head-on. The flood dragon's strength was too strong. A casual swipe of its claw would be enough to crush him into pieces. But it was different now. Yanqing Lake had a barrier array set up by the Ji family's ancestor, suppressing the flood dragon and preventing it from escaping. At the bottom of the lake, there was a black cold iron chain that firmly imprisoned the flood dragon, preventing it from leaving the ice lake. Ji Tianqing's heart calmed down a lot. His blood rushed through his body, bursting with a strong battle intent. He looked up at the flood dragon and shouted angrily, "Since you're so cruel, I won't hold back." Then, he put his index and middle fingers together and used the sword technique of the sword heart path to activate the sword embryo in his body. 4 rays of golden sword chi burst out. Ever since he talked with the sword soul in the burial of heaven in the Kenshin tomb, he had comprehended some of the secrets of the sword heart path in recent days. The flowing light sword net was only one of the secrets he had comprehended. The other secret he had comprehended was the way to control the sword chi. It was the second level of the sword heart path's cultivation technique. This level of the cultivation technique was not only the way to cultivate the vital core, but also the sword technique to control the sword chi. He held the sword technique with both hands and used the sword technique to coordinate with his spiritual will. His control of the sword chi could reach a state of telepathy like an extension of his arm. Most importantly, the range of his sword chi attack had doubled, reaching a range of 10 meters. Swish, 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 swish. 4 rays of golden sword chi suddenly flew out of his body, dragging 4 rays of golden light behind them as they stabbed toward the flood dragon's abdomen. The flood dragon clearly did not expect Ji Tianqing to use such a method to launch an attack. It was immediately stunned. It could not dodge the attack of the sword chi and was stabbed in the abdomen by the 4 rays of sword chi. However, the sharp and fierce sword chi was blocked by the black dragon scales on its abdomen, and 2 crisp ding-ding sounds were heard. The flood dragon was not hurt at all, and its eyes were full of disdain. "Kid, is this all you've got? Are you trying to tickle me?" Brothers, I'll continue to update today. There are a total of 5 chapters. Please add it to your bookshelf. Please recommend it. Please reward me. Please support me, brothers. Chapter 62. The Flood Dragon's disdainful and arrogant attitude made Ji Tianqing furious. But he was not impulsive. He sneered as he controlled the sword chi to attack. Flood Dragon, aren't you trying to provoke me to enter the ice lake to fight with you? Unfortunately, your provocation is too clumsy. I won't fall for it. Under his control, the 4 golden sword chis immediately split into 16, circling around the Flood Dragon and constantly attacking it. The golden sword chi drew a golden stream of light in the air and condensed into a sword net of light. The sharp sword chi constantly stabbed the Flood Dragon's head and body, producing a series of ding 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 sounds. But the Flood Dragon's body was covered in dense black dragon scales, and the sword chi could not hurt it at all. The Flood Dragon was killed by the sword net for a long time, but it still stood on the surface of the lake unscathed. It lowered its head and stared at Ji Tianqing. It sneered contemptuously, "Too weak. Little worm, your strength is too weak. You think I can't do anything to you just because I can't leave the lake? Too naive." As it finished speaking, the Flood Dragon crazily twisted its body and swung its huge head, fiercely hitting the sword net of light. With a series of ding ding dang dang sounds, Ji Tianqing's sword net of light was broken into pieces. The 16 sword chi were all bounced off. "Kid, go to hell!" The Flood Dragon bellowed contemptuously. It opened its mouth and shot out 6 icy blue water arrows at Ji Tianqing at lightning speed. Swish, swish, swish. With a sharp piercing sound, the 6 icy blue water arrows instantly shot in front of Ji Tianqing. The bone-chilling cold air hit him in the face, causing his body to stiffen as if he was frozen. His dodging speed was also reduced by half. Bang bang. Even though he tried his best to dodge, he was still hit by 2 icy blue water arrows. Although the icy blue water arrows were condensed from the lake water, they contained powerful ice elemental chi. Its power was no less than the sword radiance of a mystic comprehending realm expert. Ji Tianqing's right leg and arm were hit by the arrow. Immediately, 2 bloody holes appeared on his body, and dark red blood gushed out. A bone-piercing pain came, causing his face to become as pale as paper, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Enduring the pain, he retreated another 10 meters and hid behind a few boulders on the shore. "Ha ha! Weak and pitiful worm, what else can you do other than hide?" The Flood Dragon's eyes became even more contemptuous as it mocked in a low voice. "With your insignificant strength, you want to snatch this dragon's blue crystal? Compared to the previous patriarchs, you are simply a piece of trash without the strength to truss up a chicken." No matter how the Flood Dragon taunted, Ji Tianqing turned a deaf ear to its words. He hid behind the green boulder and hurriedly took out the hemostatic powder and gauze from his 100 treasures brocade pouch and quickly bandaged the wounds on his arms and legs. But at this moment, the Flood Dragon once again spat out a dozen icy blue water arrows, shooting towards the boulders where Ji Tianqing was hiding. Pung pung pung. The ground within a radius of 20 meters was instantly blasted into a large crater by the terrifying power of the icy blue water arrows. A few green boulders the size of millstones were also smashed into pieces by the water arrows. Ji Tianqing didn't even have time to dodge before he was sent flying by the violent blast. He rolled and crashed into the bamboo forest not far away. Although he was not directly hit by the icy blue water arrows, he was still dizzy from the violent blast. His internal organs were churning, and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He struggled to get up from the bamboo forest, only to find that the 100 treasures brocade pouch hanging on his waist had dropped on the open ground that was full of gravel. He was about to pick up the pouch when the little ice fox, Qianyu, flew out of the pouch. It flapped its little wings and flew in the air. It even used its little paws to rub its sleepy eyes and yawned. "Old Ji, what are you doing?" You made such a big noise and even threw me out. I was sleeping soundly. Qian Yu looked around and did not forget to complain to Ji Tianxing to express its strong dissatisfaction. Suddenly, it saw that there was a huge crater under its feet, and Ji Tianxing was lying in the bamboo forest covered in blood. It suddenly asked in surprise, "Wow, old Ji, what are you doing? How did you get hurt?" Ji Tianxing glanced at it and did not say anything. He looked coldly at the dragon in the ice lake. Qian Yu then realized that something was wrong. It quickly turned to look at the ice lake not far away. When it saw the dragon in the air above the lake, its eyes widened and its mouth opened wide. It let out a cry of surprise. "Oh my God! What a big dragon! It's the dragon of the East Sea!" It looked at Ji Tianxing in shock and excitement and asked anxiously, "Old Ji, what time is it now? Where are we? Did you leave the Tianshan region and come to the East Sea? Don't tell me the injuries on your body were caused by the dragon. Wow. Old Ji, aren't you too brave? How dare you fight with the dragon? Do you want to die?" Qian Yu said a lot of things in excitement. Its tone was both shocked and excited. It probably did not expect that after sleeping for a few days in the 100 treasures brocade pouch, it would meet the mysterious dragon of the East Sea. Ji Tianxing looked at it jumping up and down in excitement, but he could not squeeze out a smile. Seeing that Qian Yu was so excited and wanted to know the cause and effect, he could only explain. "This is not the East Sea, it's the Ji family's forbidden area. I must get the blue crystal to become the next patriarch." Qian Yu was stunned. Its eyes were filled with disbelief. It pointed at the dragon and said, "Old Ji, this is clearly the dragon clan that only exists in the endless East Sea. How could it appear in your Ji family's forbidden area? Old Ji, there is definitely something wrong with your Ji family's ancestor. There must be some secret that you don't know. Otherwise, this little dragon would not appear here." Ji Tianxing nodded and said, Qian, you are right. Our Ji family's ancestor is indeed very mysterious. However, he has disappeared for almost 100 years. No one knows why there is a dragon here. That dragon had been imprisoned in the Yanqing Lake for 100 years. During this time, it had never seen other demonic beasts, especially one that could talk like Qian Yu. It had been staring at Qian Yu with cold eyes. No one knew what it was thinking. When it heard the words, "Little Jiao Dragon," it immediately became unhappy. Its eyes flashed with anger and ferocious light. "Damn you, stinky fox! You little thing, who are you calling a little dragon?" Qian Yu turned its head to look at the dragon. It flapped its little wings and flew close to it. It said with a mocking tone, "Nonsense, of course I'm talking about you. Although you are big, you are not an adult yet. You are only an 8-year-old human child." The dragon's eyes were filled with anger. It shouted coldly, "Bastard! You are the one who is not an adult. You little stinky fox, you are not even fully grown yet you dare to call me a little dragon?" Qian Yu was also angry. She shouted in a sharp voice, "You damn stinky dragon! How can you talk to a girl like that? Do you have any shame? You are a disgrace to the East Sea Dragon tribe. Moreover, I have only temporarily lost my power. I can't show my true form. In front of my real body, you are nothing more than a small black earthworm. I can smash you into meat paste with one claw." The dragon avoided Qian Yu's eyes. It said in a low muffled voice, "You think this is all I have? If my dragon crystal had not been taken away, my power would not have dropped so much and I would not be imprisoned in this lake." Ji Tianxing watched the two of them quarrel like children. He could not help but sneer, "Ha, the dragon was so fierce just now. Now it is afraid of Qian Yu." Chapter 63. The Flood Dragon and Qian Yu continued to argue for a while, but soon the Flood Dragon was at a disadvantage. With its intelligence and eloquence, it was no match for the cunning Qian Yu. Moreover, the Flood Dragon could tell that Qian Yu's bloodline was extraordinary. At its peak, Qian Yu was much stronger than it. With its confidence waning, It stopped arguing with Qian Yu and kept quiet. Qian Yu scolded the flood dragon to vent its anger. Seeing that the flood dragon was imprisoned in the ice lake without freedom, it pitied it and began to chat with it. After talking for a while, they realized that their experiences were basically the same. They were both deprived of their lifetime's cultivation and imprisoned for hundreds of years. The flood dragon felt a sense of closeness to Qian Yu and did not attack Ji Tianqing. Qian Yu comforted it and flew back to Ji Tianqing's side. It looked at Ji Tianqing with a dignified expression and said, "Old Ji, no matter why this flood dragon appeared in the Ji clan's forbidden area, no matter what secret your ancestor has, you must release this flood dragon. The East Sea Flood Dragon clan must not appear in the human world. Otherwise, not only will the Ji clan suffer a great calamity, I'm afraid the royal Azure dynasty will be destroyed under the wrath of the Flood Dragon clan." Ji Tianqing frowned and shook his head. "Qian, you want me to release it? How is that possible? This evil flood dragon is so powerful and has been imprisoned here for hundreds of years. It hates the Ji clan to the core. If I let it go, it will definitely destroy the Ji clan and kill everyone." Qian Yu thought for a moment and came up with an idea. Its eyes flashed with a cunning light. "Hee, old Ji, you're so stupid. What does this little flood dragon desire the most? Freedom. As long as you release it and give it freedom, it will definitely agree to your conditions and not take revenge on the Ji clan." Ji Tianqing was still frowning and asked doubtfully, "Qian, your method is not reliable. Even if it agrees to not take revenge on the Ji clan in exchange for freedom, who can guarantee that it won't go back on its words?" Qian Yu quickly explained, "Old Ji, you don't know, the Dragon clan values promises and owes the most. If you negotiate with the Flood Dragon and let it swear in the name of the Dragon God, it will never go back on its words." Ji Tianqing thought in his mind. He weighed the pros and cons and the possible consequences. Although he did not know why the Dragon clan's ancestor imprisoned the Black Dragon in the lake. However, it seemed that this Black Serpent Dragon would not be of any help to the Ji clan. Instead, it would be a disaster. A moment later, he made up his mind and nodded to Qian Yu. "All right, I'll try to talk to it." He supported the wound on his leg and walked out of the bamboo forest. He came to the shore of the ice lake and looked up at the flood dragon with a serious expression. He Qian Long Qian, Ji Dragon Qian I, we Qians. Qian, and asked Qian, and it Qian. Ji Tianqing's face was calm as he said, "It wasn't my intention to fight you and steal your blue crystal. I have my own difficulties. You have been imprisoned here for 100 years. Not only have you lost your powers, you have also lost your freedom. This is not your intention either. Therefore, you can use your blue crystal to exchange for your freedom." The black dragon's pupils shrank, and its eyes were filled with surprise. You mean you are willing to let me leave this place?" Ji Tianqing nodded. "Of course. The cold iron chain on your tail is a top-grade Xian weapon made by the Ji clan's workshop. It is impervious to fire and water, and will not rot for 1,000 years. The cold iron chain's lock mechanism array is the Ji clan's 9-door lock technique. I can help you open the chain." The black dragon was excited, and its eyes shone. "Boy, are you sure you are not lying to me? You really want to let me leave this place?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "What? You don't want to leave?" "Of course I want to leave." The black dragon nodded and growled anxiously. "I have been imprisoned here for 100 years. I have always wanted to leave this place. Although I have been imprisoned in Yanqing Lake for as long as I can remember, I am a noble dragon. I should soar in the 9 heavens and roam the endless eastern sea. I will not be trapped in this little pond forever." After growling for a while, it looked down at Ji Tianqing and asked in a low voice, "Boy, if I give you the blue crystal, will you let me go?" Ji Tianqing nodded again. "Yes. But I want you to swear in the name of the dragon god that after you get your freedom, you will not take revenge on the G-clan or hurt me or the G-clan. No. The black dragon shook its head subconsciously and growled angrily. Damn the G-clan. They imprisoned me for 100 years. I hate that I cannot. Halfway through its words, it suddenly saw Ji Tianqing's face turn cold. Cold light flashed in his eyes and it immediately shut its mouth. It hesitated and struggled for a long time before it finally made up its mind. All right. For freedom. I promise you. The cold light in Ji Tianqing's eyes finally disappeared. Then swear in the name of the dragon god. The black serpent dragon was still worried and questioned him twice more. After confirming that Ji Tianqing wouldn't lie to it, it said with a solemn expression, I swear in the name of the dragon god that if Ji Tianqing keeps his promise and lets me go, I will let bygones be bygones. I will never take revenge on the Ji family, and I will never harm Ji Tianqing and his family. The black dragon's voice was solemn and loud, revealing a solemn and majestic aura. As its voice fell, invisible restraints descended from the unseen world, drilling into its body and lingering around its dragon soul. It was the binding of an oath made in the name of the dragon god. If Ji Tianqing kept his promise and it went back on its word, its dragon soul would be destroyed by the invisible binding and its soul would be destroyed. After making the oath, the black dragon dug out a black dragon scale from its forehead and handed it to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing did not know what was going on and reached out to take the palm-sized black dragon scale. Black dragon, are you sure you're not lying to me? The so-called blue crystal is your dragon scale? This palm-sized dragon scale was completely black and cold. It was not made of metal, but it gave off a metallic luster. It was heavier than metal. The black dragon narrowed its eyes at Ji Tianqing's questioning and said coldly, I have already sworn in the name of the dragon god. Of course I won't lie to you. Inject your true yuan into the dragon scale, and you'll understand. Ji Tianqing nodded to show that he understood. His true yuan flowed out of his palm and into the black dragon scale. Immediately, the dragon scale shone with an icy blue light and changed. After a few breaths, the black dragon scale turned into a rhombus-shaped icy blue crystal. Chapter 64. Ji Tianqing held the blue crystal in his hand and felt a bone-chilling aura enter his body, almost freezing him. This crystal contained a vast amount of energy and seemed to have some miraculous effect. He thought to himself that if he could refine the power of this blue crystal, he would gain great benefits and his strength would increase greatly. But at this moment the black flood dragon saw him staring at the blue crystal in a daze and reminded him in a low voice, Kid, I've already made an oath. It's time for you to fulfill your promise. Ji Tianqing hurriedly put away the blue crystal and said to the black flood dragon, Then try to get as close to the lake as possible and expose the lock of the cold iron chain. I'll help you open it. The black flood dragon did as he was told. Its huge body crawled by the lake and its dragon tail was exposed above the lake's surface. Ji Tianqing hurriedly walked to the side of the lake and examined the dragon tail and the cold iron chain closely. Only then did he see clearly that the cold iron chain was deeply embedded in the dragon tail's flesh and was stuck in the dragon bone. The white dragon bone was exposed from the wound, and the flesh around it had already rotted away. Although the black flood dragon had a strong self-healing ability, and the wound would heal slowly. But with the cold iron chain on the tail, even if new flesh grew around the wound, it would rot away again. Ji Tianqing jumped into the lake and swam 7 or 8 meters to the tail of the flood dragon while enduring the bone-chilling cold. He used his family's method of cracking the lock with both hands and inserted his true essence into it. In just 30 breaths, he successfully opened the cold iron chain. The black flood dragon was finally free and regained its freedom. When Ji Tianqing opened the cold iron chain and took it out of the dragon's tailbone, he threw it into Yanqing Lake. It could no longer hold back the excitement in its heart and rushed into the sky, letting out an excited and high-pitched dragon roar. At that moment, it emitted an extremely holy, powerful and majestic aura. That was the dragon's breath unique to the dragon race. Ji Tianqing's face turned pale from the invisible dragon's breath. He felt his blood and qi flow in reverse and almost spat out blood. He resisted the churning of his internal organs and quickly swam back to the shore. Right at this moment, the entire Yanqing Lake started to shake violently, and huge waves that were over 10 feet high surged up from the surface of the lake. The ground around the ice lake was also cracking, and the bamboo forest was collapsing into the ground. Hundreds of towering trees also collapsed and fell into Yanqinghu Lake. The earth-shattering commotion caused Ji Tianqing's expression to change dramatically. He was shocked in his heart. He subconsciously raised his head to look at the sky and saw that the spirit formation that enveloped Yanqinghu in the sky had actually shattered and collapsed. The dark yellow barrier, which was as huge as the sky, cracked open, bursting with an incomparably violent power. In the blink of an eye, the dark yellow barrier completely collapsed, turning into a tornado-like dark yellow pillar of light that swept towards the Black Jiao Dragon. The Black Flood Dragon had just regained its freedom and was circling in the air. The hurricane formed by the spirit formation swept over. It simply had nowhere to run, and was instantly swept into the hurricane. No matter how powerful it was, it could not escape from the hurricane. Not only that, but its 30-meter-long body was also rapidly shrinking under the suppression of the hurricane. Ah! How could this be? The Black Jiao Dragon was filled with fear as it let out an anxious roar. However, the hurricane continued to shrink, suppressing its body until it was smaller and smaller. About half a quarter of an hour later, the terrifying dark yellow hurricane finally disappeared. The Black Jiao Dragon was almost killed by the hurricane, but it managed to escape. The violently shaking Yanqinghu Lake gradually calmed down. Ji Tianqing and Qian Yu looked at the Black Jiao Dragon again. When they saw its appearance, they were stunned. How could this be? How did the Black Jiao Dragon shrink 10 times its size? This arrogant little dragon finally experienced what I felt when I shrunk my body. The Black Jiao Dragon was also stunned. It floated in the air and looked down at its own body. Its eyes were filled with fear. Why did this happen? Originally, its body was over 30 meters long, and its body was huge and majestic. Now, its appearance had not changed, but its body had shrunk by 10 times. It was only 3 meters long. At first glance, no one would think that it was a Jiao Dragon. They would think that it was a black python. The Black Jiao Dragon could not accept this result. It flew madly in the air and roared to vent its anger. In the end, after flying around Yanqinghu crazily for more than 10 rounds, its strength was exhausted and it fell into Yanqinghu Lake. Qian Yu laughed gloatingly and did not forget to clap with its little paws. The corners of Ji Tianqing's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help but laugh. A dignified divine beast flood dragon was actually exhausted from flying and fell into the lake. This was simply the biggest joke in the world. The Black Jiao Dragon flopped around in the lake for a while before returning to the shore. It lay on a huge rock in a rather sorry state and muttered in a daze, "Why is it like this? Damned bastard, back then you took away my dragon crystal and imprisoned me here. And now you've even set up such a formation to reduce my dragon body to such a tiny size. I am so angry." The Black Jiao Dragon was going crazy. Qian Yu flew next to it and comforted it with a smile as if she had been there before. "Little Jiao Dragon, don't be sad. It's okay to be smaller, you will get used to it in a few days. Only, with your current situation, even if you leave the Ji family, you will not be able to return to the endless Eastern Sea, the territory of the Jiao Dragon clan. I think before you leave the Imperial Qing dynasty, you will be caught and eaten by high-level beasts or become a pet of a human elite warrior. TSK, so pitiful." The black serpent dragon's eyes glowed with anger. It used its dragon claws to smash the millstone beneath it into pieces. Damn it! If the ancestor of the G family didn't take away my dragon crystal, I would not be in this situation. My dragon crystal, the power that I have painstakingly cultivated all my life. Qian Yu rolled her eyes and a sly smile flashed across her eyes. Suddenly, she thought of an idea. Little Jiao Dragon, since you are so weak now, you will not be able to return to the Jiao Dragon clan's territory in the Eastern Sea. Also, if you don't have anyone to protect you, you will not be able to survive in the human world. How about this, you stay with Old G and slowly recover your strength. When Old G is strong enough, he will send you back to the Eastern Sea. The black Jiao Dragon was stunned for a moment and immediately revealed a thoughtful expression. Ji Tianxing frowned and quickly grabbed Qian Yu and asked in a low voice, Qian, what are you doing? Why do I have to protect it and send it back to the Eastern Sea? The Eastern Sea is at the most eastern side of the continent. It is separated by many regions from the Tianshan region. I will not be able to reach the Eastern Sea even if I travel for my entire life. Qian Yu revealed a sly smile and used some kind of secret technique to send her voice directly to his ears. She explained, Old G, are you stupid? I am doing this for your own good. This is a Jiao Dragon. If you can keep it by your side, you will gain many benefits in the future. As for when you will send it back to the Eastern Sea, isn't that up to you? Maybe 50 years later, or maybe 100 years later, when you are strong enough to travel across large regions, you can send it back to the Eastern Sea. Ji Tianxing frowned and thought for a moment. He whispered, if that's the case, it is not impossible. Let's see if it agrees.